Chapter 1467. Zhong Xianshan stared at Li Zongjiu in disbelief. How? How did you know? To Zhong Xianshan, this was something that was impossible. How could Li Zongjiu know about it? Furthermore, he had seen through him with just a single glance. There's a longevity formation in the Supreme Green Origin Cauldron. Unfortunately, this longevity formation can only last you for 100 years at most. When that time comes, you'll die. This bamboo forest can provide you with vitality, but you can only last for 200 years at most. Li Zongjiu shook his head. Throw him back. A person who is about to die is not fit to teach in our Tianzong Academy. Li Zongjiu then waved his hand. Taifai stepped forward. Zhong Xianshan, who had just woken up, immediately got to his feet and raised his hand. Wait! Zhong Xianshan was a shrewd old man. How could he not know that Li Zongjiu must possess an unparalleled power? Otherwise, how could he have gotten his hands on this giant dragon? He could have made the giant dragon obey his orders. Not to mention his own array, his green cauldron, and the condition of his body. How could Li Zongjiu see through him with just a glance? In fact, Zhong Xianshan had done many studies to see if there was anyone on this continent who could provide him with the path to longevity. He knew very well that his life was coming to an end. There was no way he could avoid it. In fact, Zhong Xianshan had gone through many hardships to reach the Eldritch Wilderness. But after going through it once, he realized that his alchemy skills were already top-notch. Apart from the dangers in the Eldritch Wilderness, there was nothing special about it. The only difference was that the meta beasts were a little stronger. He had stayed there for a period of time before returning to the Xingyan dynasty. After all, that place was too dangerous. In fact, if not for the bamboo forest formation on Emerald Bamboo Mountain and the Supreme Green Origin Cauldron, which had been set up to cultivate immortality, Zhong Xianshan would have lost its vitality. Perhaps he had already died 300 years ago. Therefore, Zhong Xianshan had no intention of leaving the mountain. In this world, there was indeed no one who had the ability to reconstruct life and regain the power of life. Therefore, Zhong Xianshan had thought that he might as well enjoy the rest of his life here. Who would have thought that it would be completely destroyed by Li Zongjiu? As for the origin of the evil lord Li Zongjiu, naturally, the latter had already looked for it. Initially, he had heard of this kid. He thought that the latter was just lucky and obtained a little opportunity to improve his strength. However, such a person would disappear in a short time. After all, the tide of this continent couldn't be overturned so easily. Anyone who tried to stop the tide would be smashed into smithereens by the tide of the continent. As such, Zhong Xianshan did not pay much attention to Li Zongjiu. Until now, Li Zongjiu had appeared in front of him. Zhong Xianshan immediately connected all the information he had gathered about Li Zongjiu in his mind. Terrifying. This was a terrifying existence. In fact, even now, Zhong Xianshan did not know the depth of Li Zongjiu's strength. Previously, his Supreme Green Cauldron had been taken away by the other party. In the blink of an eye, Zhong Xianshan felt that his connection with the Supreme Green Cauldron had been severed. Who else in this world could do such a thing? Coupled with his current situation, he had been seen through by the other party almost instantly. Zhong Xianshan had never told anyone about the condition of his body. How did Li Zongjiu know about it? It must be that the other party's skills were far above his own. That was why he could do such a thing. Evil Lord, as long as you can find a way to extend my life, I will be willing to teach in the medicine manner of the Sky Sect. It seemed like a deal had been struck. Right now, Zhong Xianshan did not have many years left to live. Once his Jade Bamboo Mountain array was destroyed, his lifespan would decrease even faster. Furthermore, he would basically be a cripple by the end of it. Even the slightest movement would deplete his life. Therefore, if Li Zongjiu could help him extend his life, even if they wanted him to come out of seclusion and impart the art of alchemy, it would not be impossible. However, it was obvious that Zhong Xianshan thought too highly of him. He had also misjudged Li Zongjiu's temper. How many days has this old man trapped you? Li Zongjiu ignored Zhong Xianshan's question. When Xiao Zhao heard that Zhong Xianshan had agreed to leave the mountain, his eyes lit up. He could not wait to pull Zhong Xianshan up. To be able to invite Zhong Xianshan was a dream come true. Besides Li Zongjiu, Zhong Xuanshan's alchemy skills were the best in the world. If they could invite this person, the medicine manor of the Sky Sect Academy would surpass the Heavenly Dawn medicine manor. Naturally, it was Xiao Zhao's wish to bring the Sky Sect Academy to greater heights. However, when he heard Li Zongjiu's question, Xiao Zhao immediately regained his senses. It seems to be 5 days. Although he did not know why Li Zongjiu asked this question, he recalled that he had recalled 2 days ago. But thinking back, he was trapped for 2 days, and when Li Yan came, he was trapped for another 3 days. A total of 5 days. At first, we waited for 2 days. Yin Qi added. Then it's been 7 days. Li Zongjiu calculated and said, "What are you trying to do?" Zhong Xianshan suddenly had a bad feeling. He could not figure out what Li Zongjiu was trying to do. But this feeling made him feel a little uncomfortable. "Since you've imprisoned my people for 7 days, I'll return the favor. I'll imprison you for 70 years. That's fair enough," Li Zongjiu said. Sometimes, killing a person was not necessarily the greatest punishment for them. What they wanted was not being given to them. That was the greatest punishment, making it so that they would never be able to obtain it. Imprison him for 70 years? That would only leave him with 100 years of life. If he were to be imprisoned for 70 years, would he still be alive when he came out? If he were to be imprisoned, wouldn't that be worse than death? Li Zongjiu ignored Zhong Xuanshan's doubtful gaze. With a casual wave of his hand, he tossed Zhong Xianshan into the Chaos Yuan Bell. No. As Zhong Xianshan was trapped within the primordial bell, he finally understood that Li Zongjiu was not joking. Li Zongjiu was really going to trap him inside for 70 years. This was worse than death. But now, Zhong Xianshan was trapped within the world of the Chaos Yuan Bell in the blink of an eye. When Zhong Xianshan arrived, he could feel the strong sealing power around him. He knew that there was no way he could get out. Furthermore, the power that was flowing around him was extremely frightening. This power was so strong that even a strand of hair could pierce through him. Therefore, he did not dare to move at all. Not only that, but Zhong Xianshan also saw many giant dragons not far away. They were all people who were trapped in the world of the Chaos Yuan Bell. Seeing such a scene, how could Zhong Xianshan remain calm? What the hell is this place? Zhong Xianshan had been cultivating for so many years, but he had never seen such a scene. He had been to so many places in the Shengwu continent, but he had never seen such a dangerous place. Other than that, there was nothing here. Instead, he had to be on tenterhooks. If he was not careful, he would lose his life. "Let me out! Let me out!" Zhong Xianshan was indeed thinking too highly of himself. Li Zongjiu did not care about this old man at all. Who cared about his background? Didn't he know what true respect was? If he didn't even know respect, what could he do even if his cultivation was strong? Therefore, Li Zongjiu decided to teach Zhong Xianshan a lesson. At the very least, Zhong Xianshan would learn to respect Li Zongjiu for the next 30 years. "Young master, this man is the #1 alchemist in the entire Shengwu continent apart from you." Xiao Zhao was afraid that Li Zongjiu would kill him on impulse. After all, Li Zongjiu might do something like that as well. Li Zongjiu would not care too much about other people's business. "I didn't kill him. I kept him alive," Li Zongjiu said. "It's been hard on you guys. In the future, just bring people and smash their territory. I don't believe that they won't bow down." Xiao Zhao rolled his eyes at Li Zongjiu's words. He couldn't use such a method for everything, could he? Now that Zhong Xianshan had been taken away by Li Zongjiu, all his previous efforts had been in vain. However, Xiao Zhao thought that if Li Zongjiu was willing to listen to his advice and get Zhong Xianshan out after his anger had subsided, everything would be fine. "Young master, we have 8,000 students in the Tianzong Academy now. Dean Lan Yian has repeatedly instructed us to invite this alchemist over. It won't be too late to punish him after we have nurtured the best alchemists. Young master, why don't you stay behind and teach them personally?" Xiao Zhao's eyes shifted to Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu couldn't be bothered to care about these things. How could he let such a thing happen to him? "I don't have that much time. Young master, why don't you trap Zhong Xianshan in the Tianzong Academy for 70 years and not let him go out? Let him atone for his crimes. How about that?" Xiao Zhao hurriedly said. To Li Zongjiu, It was just one less person to kill. However, since Xiao Zhao had spoken, if it weren't for Xiao Zhao presiding over the White Deer Mansion for so many years, who knew how desolate it would have become? Alright, we'll talk about it when we get back. Locking him up for a while is enough for him. Chapter 1468. After Qing Shilong finished doing all this, he obediently returned to his seat and pulled the emperor toward Sacred Flame Imperial City. Boom! The Tianwu boat broke through the sky. The people on the boat were also feeling the strength of the Qing Shilong. Pulling such a large boat, it could fly so quickly. It really lived up to its name as a giant dragon. As for where Li Zongjiu got this Qing Shilong from, they did not ask. They did not ask. After all, this was Li Zongjiu's own matter. With this kind of strength, it was not strange for him to do this kind of thing. After Li Zongjiu and the others left, more than 20 li away from Cuizhu Mountain, there were a few figures who were riding fast. On both sides of the horses were heavy luggage. It was clear that they had traveled without regard to wind and rain. Up ahead is the legendary Cuizhu Mountain. It is said that as long as one can bring a pill that can prolong one's life, there is a chance that one will be accepted as a disciple by the supreme expert on Cuizhu Mountain. This person's strength is definitely stronger than that Li Zongjiu. Is that true? Our Hua clan almost went bankrupt in order to obtain such a pill. The people following behind him also had grave expressions on their faces. With things as they were, there was no way out. The people in front of them were members of the Hua family. Previously, they were awe-inspiring and controlled the Green Dragon Army for many years. Even the Shengyan dynasty's imperial family could not do anything to the Green Dragon Army. The position of the commander of the Green Dragon Army had always been decided internally by the Hua family. They were very arrogant. Later on, they offended Li Zongjiu. Under pressure from many sides, these people of the Hua family directly moved to the south to oversee the north. But after being deployed, these people of the Hua family were clearly targeted by the imperial family. This was an excellent opportunity. In just a short 2 years, the Hua family had basically broken away from the center of power of the Green Dragon Army. As long as Emperor Xingyan found an excuse, he would be able to kill them all. Therefore, before that day really came, he had to find a new way. When they heard that there was a supreme being expert living in seclusion on Jade Bamboo Mountain 300 years ago, the members of the Hua family knew that their chance had come. Of course, he wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity so easily. Therefore, he did not hesitate to spend a lot of money. He had practically emptied out the entire Hua clan in order to gather such a large sum of money. In the end, he had managed to obtain such a pill from a desolate sect. It was said that it took a lot of effort to get in touch with this desolate age sect. Just this round trip alone cost a lot of money. If they couldn't settle this matter, they would be in big trouble. This was their only chance. Remember, the Hua family cannot lose. We have to let everyone know that the Hua family will definitely get back what they've lost. No one can take away anything that belongs to the Hua family. However, when the 6 of them arrived at Jade Bamboo Mountain, they saw something. There was no Jade Bamboo Mountain in front of them. There was one at discarded Bamboo Mountain. There were pieces of bamboo everywhere. Obviously, it had been destroyed by someone. When they saw this scene, they knew very well what had happened. It was obvious that this Emerald Bamboo Mountain had been wrecked by someone not long ago. The members of the Hua family repeatedly looked at the map in their hands. The map is right. This is the place. We didn't go the wrong way. How could this be? How could this be? The members of the Hua family never expected this. They had traveled thousands of miles, and even found many ways to avoid the eyes of the White Deer Mansion. Perhaps Li Zongjiu had forgotten about the Hua family, but Xiao Zhao and the White Deer Mansion would never forget about the Hua family. They would definitely keep an eye on the Hua family's movements. In order to avoid them, they had disguised themselves and even rode a horse in a big circle. However, they did not expect that when they finally arrived at their destination, they were still a step too late. The huge Jade Bamboo Mountain had been completely destroyed. This was obviously not the work of an ordinary person. Could it be? Could it be that the people of White Deer residence knew about it, so they destroyed the Green Bamboo Mountain in advance? A young member of the Hua family couldn't help but say in a trembling voice. Impossible. An elder of the Hua family hurriedly said. How could a mere white deer mansion have such an ability? It must be known that the person on Jade Bamboo Mountain had already become a supreme being 300 years ago. Even the imperial family had to treat him with respect. It was impossible for a mere white deer mansion to deal with him. Even the people of the White Deer Mansion did not have such an ability. When it came to this point, it could be said to be extremely sonorous and advantageous. But other than the White Deer Mansion, who else has such an ability? After one person asked the question, everyone fell silent. Obviously, they couldn't find the answer to this matter at all. How could someone do something like this? Only the person from the White Deer Mansion could do it. If the person from the White Deer Mansion has really returned, then our Hua family really has no hope. In front of the huge ruins of Jade Bamboo Mountain, the 6 ambitious members of the Hua family were completely annihilated at this moment. They no longer had any confidence that this matter had anything to do with the White Deer Mansion. If even the White Deer Mansion couldn't do it, then no one in the entire Xingyan dynasty could do it. Could it be that the heavens really want to destroy our Hua family? Rumble. Dark clouds appeared in the sky. A heavy rain came without warning. It happened to be the 6 people in front of Jade Bamboo Mountain. They were all awakened by the rain. But everything seemed to become even more blurry in the heavy rain. Li Zongjio naturally didn't know. The Hua family had not given up on their evil intentions. They actually wanted to find someone to deal with him. If the Hua family found out, the person they wanted to ask for help had already been locked up by Li Zongjio, they would die of anger on the spot. However, this was also equivalent to solving a problem. At the very least, after the Hua family felt such despair, they no longer dared to resist. All the other families would fall into decline. This was a very normal thing. Li Zongjio and the others returned to the sacred flame imperial city. Then, they directly summoned Zhong Xianshan, who was trapped in the chaotic Yuan Bell. Plop. When Zhong Xianshan landed on the ground, his entire body was truly in a pitiful state. Xiao Zhao looked at Zhong Xianshan, who was covered in wounds. His heart skipped a beat. What in the world was going on? Where did the young master lock him up? If he had locked him up normally, he wouldn't have ended up in such a state, right? Spare me, spare me. Evil Lord, spare me. After Zhong Xianshan appeared, he tried to defend himself. Even though no one was beating him up, he was so flustered that it was as though he had been beaten up by a group of people. Then, when he saw Li Zongjio and the others sitting in front of him, he naturally started begging for mercy. There was no longer any trace of his arrogance from before. That arrogant attitude of his from before was gone as well. Everyone could see that even a top-notch figure like him could only kneel down and beg for mercy in front of Li Zongjio. Do you know your sins? Li Zongjio asked. I know I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. I'll do anything you ask of me. As long as you don't let me enter that place, everything else is negotiable. Zhong Xianshan pleaded. Just based on that attitude of his, no one dared to believe what was happening. For such a huge reversal to happen right under their noses, one could say that this was the first time they had seen something like this. Even after living for so long, they had never seen something like this before. Both Yin Qi and Li Yun had truly witnessed the prowess of this man before them. But in the hands of Li Zongjio, he had cowered in less than half a day. And with such a sincere attitude at that. Just what sort of an existence was this Chaos Yuan Bell in the hands of the young master? Even though these people were curious, they did not dare to head over to check it out. If even Zhong Xianshan was afraid of it, it must be an extremely horrifying place. Even though Zhong Xianshan was strong, he was nothing in the face of those dozens of dragons. After being beaten up badly, he would naturally behave himself once he came out. Right now, the Chaos Yuan Bell was under the control of Li Zongjio. Since Xiao Zhao wanted Zhong Xianshan to live, Li Zongjio could also guarantee that the latter would not die. But this physical pain was inevitable. My young master is magnanimous. If you admit your mistake, you will be punished with a position in the Sky Sect Academy. You will enjoy the treatment of a normal instructor. You will be teaching for 70 years, and will not be allowed to leave the Sky Sect Academy. Also, If you do not do your best during the teaching process, the young master will lock you back at any time, Xiao Zhao added. Upon hearing that he was going to be taken back, Zhong Xinshan shuddered. He did not dare to say any more nonsense and nodded repeatedly. Evil Lord, don't worry. Everyone don't worry. Seeing that Zhong Xinshan had agreed, Xiao Zhao immediately smiled. Mr. Zhong, please rise. This was the speed of the change in attitude. This made Zhong Xinshan feel overwhelmed by the unexpected favor he had received. It was already praiseworthy that Li Zongjio did not kill him, but Xiao Zhao was still so kind to him. Who were these people? All right, since everything is settled, I will go and cultivate. Qing Shilong, you stay here and listen to Xiao Zhao's instructions, Li Zongjio said. Yes, master. Please rest assured. Even though Li Zongjio returned the Dragon Ball to Qing Shilong did not intend to leave. Why? Li Zongjio was the one who defeated the evil dragon god. What kind of existence was this? It was hard for ordinary people to understand. It could be said that the evil dragon god had basically ruled Dragon Island, except for the dragon prison. Chapter 1469. To be able to escape from death. How could the latter not be grateful to Xiao Zhao? If not for the fact that Xiao Zhao had taken a liking to his strength, he might have really been locked up by Li Zongjio within the chaotic Yuan Bell, suffering a fate worse than death. Zhong Xinshan finally understood what it was like. It was hard to believe that such a strong person could exist. Even in the Eldritch Wilderness, such a person would definitely be a top existence. How did he end up here? Why would he be willing to stay in this city? What Zhong Xinshan did not know was that Li Zongjio had already been in the Eldritch Wilderness for a long time. How many people in the Eldritch Wilderness did not know the name of the evil lord? The only thing to blame was that Zhong Xuanshan's information was too outdated. Li Zongjio continued his seclusion. His research on the evil dragon's eye was still ongoing. The trials within the evil dragon's eye could be said to be pretty tough. Even though Li Zongjio was fully focused each time, he was still crushed in an instant. However, as the number of times he was tortured increased, Li Zongjio was not someone to be trifled with. In a situation where there was no pattern, he was able to find a breakthrough point. Although the final outcome was more or less the same. However, Li Zongjio himself was also improving. In just half a month's time, Li Zongjio had already successfully withstood 20,000 attacks in this trial. Before he was crushed by the 20,000th attack, he had successfully dodged a move. Li Zongjio did not know what level of improvement this was. In order to understand more about the evil dragon's eye, Li Zongjio's figure flashed and appeared in front of the evil dragon god. Within the boundless infernal realm, Li Zongjio summoned the evil dragon god in front of him. In front of his hell, the evil dragon god was nothing more than a puppet that could come and go as he wished. The evil dragon god didn't have any freedom to speak of, and there was no chance for it to rise again. This was because Li Zongjio wouldn't let it rise again. You, kill me if you can. I would rather die than be humiliated. When the evil dragon god saw Li Zongjio, he clenched his teeth in hatred. In this boundless hell, he was constantly reincarnated. He couldn't do anything else. He was like a cripple. He was like a puppet toy placed on a fixed track. He was completely useless. The only thing he could maintain was a clear mind. Li Zongjio had purposely given it to him. Let him clearly experience his own boundless hell. Let him feel it properly, and let him have a good time. You talk too much. Li Zongjio didn't have that much time to interrogate the evil dragon god. He directly reached out and snatched the memories hidden in the evil dragon god's mind. The evil dragon god's body stiffened in place. Li Zongjio opened the evil dragon god's memories in front of him. It was as if a light screen was spread out in front of him, and everything he saw was displayed on it. Found it. Li Zongjio found the part related to the evil dragon eye and read it. He learned from the evil dragon god's memories. The evil dragon god in front of him was only able to withstand about 8,000 attacks. As for the evil dragon eye, there wasn't any useful information. However, he had some understanding of the evil dragon eye's origin. This brat had suddenly found it in an unknown corner of Dragon Island. According to his estimations, there must be other parts of the heavenly dragon here. However, The evil dragon god had already spent a lot of energy to find this evil dragon eye. At the same time, if he wanted to explore other places, he already felt like he would be devoured. Moreover, this place was also very close to the dragon race's ancestral dragon graveyard. This was also why the evil dragon god was so anxious to get rid of the dragon penitentiary and obtain the power within the ancestral dragon eye. Because the evil dragon god knew that there must be something even more powerful in the ancestral dragon graveyard. As long as he could obtain the power within, he would be able to become the king of all races. Does this fool have a brain? If your ancestor could become the king of all races, how could he be reduced to being buried on Dragon Island? Li Zongjie was extremely disdainful. In his opinion, the person in front of him had no brain at all. What your ancestor couldn't do when he was alive, how could you do it after he died? You're just finding an excuse for your greed. This kind of person was truly shameless. But from the looks of it, there should be some treasures on Dragon Island. Speaking of treasures, that Long Ji still owes me something. Li Zongjie wouldn't forget about these things. After all, they weren't cheap. Now that Li Zongjie had reached the level where he could withstand 20,000 attacks, he needed to tidy up a little. If he blindly carried on stubbornly, it might backfire. Only by having a balance between tension and relaxation could he better improve his strength. Although I've been killed so many times, it's not like I didn't gain anything. At least my current grasping ability is 3 times stronger than before. Li Zongjie was also secretly surprised. If it was the original owner of the evil dragon eye, how powerful would he be? It was simply unimaginable. After he died, just the ability of one eye was enough to kill Li Zongjie countless times. At his peak, Sky Dragon? Upper Realm? Li Zongjie raised his head and looked at the sky. He had also tried to fly out of the clouds, but he had never succeeded. After ascending to a certain height, he would be restricted by a force, and it would be very difficult for him to break through. If he wasn't careful, he would be strangled by the power of heaven and earth. Even after reaching the absolute saint realm, he still couldn't reach it. But if there was a higher level world, Li Zongjie wouldn't have the slightest doubt. In fact, he even thought that this was something to be expected. Otherwise, how could he explain it? Sacred Martial Realm's ape race powerhouse. With just a light palm, the other party could easily destroy everything on the Sacred Martial continent. This was such a terrifying strength. Fortunately, Li Zongjie saw this scene. So now Li Zongjie was also eager to improve his strength. He had read the 9 lineages heavenly book in the Sacred Martial Realm. Li Zongjie also knew about it. The power of the 9 lineages heavenly book could be stacked. When you snatched the heavenly book of another race, you could use it to strengthen yourself. The ape race must have snatched the heavenly book of the fallen race. The current ape race might have at least 2 heavenly books. If they pursued power, sooner or later, they would kill their way to the Sacred Martial Realm and cause trouble for the human race. With the current strength of the human race, Heavenly Saint Kuan Peng couldn't even withstand a single palm attack. There was really no chance to speak of. Li Zongjie didn't want to be the guardian of the human race. As long as his family wasn't threatened, it would be fine. He would rather stay in such a place forever. But trouble would come knocking on his door sooner or later. Li Zongjie was very clear about this. Only when he grasped absolute strength would the trouble disappear automatically. This was without a doubt. When you were strong enough to not be afraid of any trouble, it was equivalent to no trouble. Thinking back to the ape race's hand, Li Zongjie's eyes became more determined. Inside the White Deer Mansion, Long Ji was chatting with Xiao Zhao. But while they were chatting on the way, Instructor Ling Yan from the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor had also arrived. When he saw that there was actually an additional graceful woman in the White Deer residence, whose every frown and smile was filled with a mature and alluring aura, the expression in his eyes clearly changed. Xiao Zhao, who is this? Ling Yan used to be Li Zongjie's instructor, even though it was only in name. But Ling Yan always used this name to come to the White Deer Mansion. Most of the time, he came to discuss some teaching plans, or to carry out some joint projects with the Heavenly Sect Academy. In short, his purpose was self-evident. It was to make the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor more competitive. Recently, The Heavenly Sect Academy suddenly had an expert in the field of elixir pills. Even their mansion master couldn't help but visit the Heavenly Sect Academy. Ling Yin knew that the person the Heavenly Sect Academy invited this time was not simple. So Ling Yin wanted to investigate the situation and see if he could invite this person to give a lecture at the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. At least he still needed to maintain his reputation. Everyone wanted to promote the development of the education field. In addition, with this layer of relationship, Ling Yin was confident that the White Deer Mansion would not be so stingy. But when he saw Long Ji, Ling Yin couldn't help but focus all his attention on Long Ji. This is Instructor Long Ji, the tactical combat instructor that the Heavenly Sect Academy just hired. Xiao Zhao said, "Tactical combat instructor?" Ling Yin couldn't help but look at the beautiful Long Ji in front of him. With Long Ji's posture, not to mention tactical combat, it would be a problem if she could even wield a weapon. But this weapon was very powerful. Ling Yin felt a little ashamed. But to say that this Long Ji could become a combat instructor, Ling Yin really didn't believe it. And the reason why Xiao Zhao knew Long Ji's power, it was because of Qing Shilong's performance. Xiao Zhao had seen Qing Shilong's strength. But in front of Long Ji, Qing Shilong was completely like a puppy. He didn't have any temper at all. He couldn't even lift his head in front of Long Ji. "Miss, do you want to exchange a few moves with me to test my strength?" Long Ji said with a trace of provocation in the corner of her eyes. Chapter 1470. Long Ji was able to come to the Sacred Flame Imperial City this time. She had to persuade the second warden to temporarily put down the plan to kill Li Zongjie. After all, Li Zongjie was not someone to be trifled with. Moreover, Li Zongjie had made a special contribution to the dragon tribe. If she wanted to make up for her mistake, she would not have to kill Li Zongjie in such a hurry. Even if she mobilized the entire Dragon Island, she might not be able to hurt Li Zongjie at all. Moreover, the current situation of Dragon Island was quite serious. If she had to divide her forces to deal with Li Zongjie, she would be asking for trouble in the Draconic Penitentiary. The second warden was not stupid. However, if he did not say it at that time, he would lose all his prestige as the second warden. Therefore, he still had to say it. However, if he really wanted to fight with Li Zongjie, he naturally had no chance of winning. Now Long Ji understood. Therefore, she beat him at his own game. She suggested to appease Li Zongjie for the time being. When someone was strong enough to kill Li Zongjie, it would not be too late to punish him. Long Ji did this because she had no choice. At least this way, she could ensure that the people in the Draconic Penitentiary would not be so impulsive for the time being. "I'm a gentleman. I don't know how to fight and kill," Ling Yin said proudly. Then she flipped her hair. However, Long Ji did not move an inch. Moreover, Long Ji's hair was also red like Ling Yan's. Moreover, Long Ji's hair color was even more vibrant. Xiao Zhao sighed helplessly as she watched the fight between the two of them. Clearly, this kind of thing happened frequently, and it wasn't strange at all. After all, his young master's charm was too great. After hearing that Li Zongjie had returned, even Miss Song Jiyu had been visiting for several days. If this was before, Xiao Zhao would not believe it at all. He would even think that the Song Jiyu in front of him was a fake. She actually came to visit in person, and several times in a row. How could such a situation occur? Her previous mistress was very ambitious. And now, he had become the person with the greatest authority in the Song family. Apart from the patriarch, Song Jiyu's subordinates were the strongest. It was because of one reason. He was working with White Deer Mansion. Xiao Zhao was naturally not a heartless person. What's more, her ability was also because of the young Mrs. many times of nurturing, which allowed her, Xiao Zhao, to have today's ability. Of course, they would do more for their old customers. As long as there was a reasonable project, they would cooperate. Song Jiyu had a small share, while the White Deer Mansion had a large share. Of course, it was not that she was unreasonable, but the situation was like this. Ordinary people would have to spend a lot of money to build a relationship with the White Deer Mansion. The market was like this now. There was no personal relationship to speak of. Since Xiao Zhao was working for Li Zongjie now, He naturally had to put all his focus on the White Deer Mansion. Haha, I won't disturb you. Where do I live? Not only did Long Ji become the tactical combat instructor of Tianzong Academy, but she also became a guest elder of the White Deer Mansion. Since she was a guest elder, she naturally lived in the White Deer Mansion. Nangong Wuji's identity was also a guest elder. After all, Li Zhongjie did not stay in the White Deer Mansion for long periods of time. Naturally, he needed some top experts to become guest elders. Of course, it wasn't an easy task to join the White Deer residences and become a guest elder. It wasn't as if you could enter just because you had sufficient strength. You still had to go through layers of tests. After all, it was not an exaggeration to call the White Deer Mansion the #1 mansion in the world. For example, the Mirror Emperor Master was not recruited by the White Deer Mansion to become a guest elder. It could be seen that the White Deer Mansion attached great importance to the guest elder test. What, he is actually a guest elder? Ling Yan was also quite surprised when he saw this. This meant that she had reached the sky in one step. He did not expect this woman to be so lucky. Could it be that she had some unspeakable secret with Li Zhongjie? Ling Yan's eyes lit up. Since Li Zhongjie could have some unspeakable secret with others, then... Ahem. Xiao Zhao saw that Ling Yan seemed to have sunk into endless reverie, and could not help but cough twice. Was he going to forget himself at this time? Immediately, Ling Yan woke up and realized that he seemed to have lost his composure. Damn it, this woman was actually so arrogant and so strong. Ling Yan was also quite jealous. What's so lively about? Li Zhongjie walked in from outside and saw the 3 women here. Long Ji was also here. His gaze first fell on Long Ji. You're here. If you didn't come, I would have gone there personally. Yes, yes. Li Zhongjie said lightly. When Li Zhongjie went to find you personally, then this matter would be troublesome. It would not be so easy to solve it casually. A mere Dragon King's treasure house was not enough to deal with Li Zhongjie. But now that the other party had come personally, it was fine. At least she was tactful. Long Ji did not dare to forget about Evil Lord's matter. This time, I was specially ordered by the Great Master to bring this thing and present it to Evil Lord. Long Ji did not dare to be too casual in front of Li Zhongjie now. She knew Li Zhongjie's true strength. Someone who could directly kill the evil dragon god. Such a ruthless person was definitely not to be trifled with. If she did, the consequences would be unimaginable. Long Ji presented an extremely exquisite ring to Li Zhongjie. This ring contained everything from the Fire Dragon tribe's patriarch's treasure house. Not a single thing was missing. Since she had already taken out so many things, then there was no need to do any other unnecessary tricks. Otherwise, after being exposed, wouldn't it be even more awkward? The relationship between the Dragon Island and Li Zhongjie would become even more tense. Li Zhongjie took the ring. After scanning it with his mental power, he threw the ring to Xiao Zhao. Use the things inside as you see fit. Li Zhongjie handed over most of the stolen storage rings to Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao was also used to it. He thought that Long Ji brought some treasures to build a relationship with him. It was a very normal thing. However, when Xiao Zhao's spiritual power was injected into the storage ring, it didn't react at all. Immediately, he was shocked by the contents of the storage ring. Xiao Zhao couldn't believe his eyes. Then he used his mental power to scan it again. There were no less than 5 divine weapons inside. Any one of these items was enough to shake the heavens and earth. It was unbelievable. Such precious things. Divine weapons were also a kind of rating for weapons. But now there were basically no divine weapons, because they couldn't be forged. Therefore, many things could only be passed down from generation to generation. However, with the passage of time, many divine artifacts had lost their original sharpness. The unparalleled sword was a divine weapon. But to truly display the power of a divine weapon, one needed to master the power of the unparalleled sword. Other people simply couldn't display the power of the unparalleled sword. Young master, these things are too. Xiao Zhao wanted to say something, but Li Zhongjie waved his hand. You can do as you see fit. Li Zhongjie would be a little interested in these things in the past. But now he basically had no interest in them. It was useless even if he wanted them. He had enough weapons. At most, he would use them to arm his family. In this aspect, he believed that Xiao Zhao would take care of it. After all, the original intention of establishing the White Deer Mansion was to protect the Li family. As the sharpest spear of the Li family outside, it was enough to eliminate any danger. But the most surprised person was Long Ji. She didn't take the wrong ring just now. It contained the lifetime collection of the Fire Dragon tribe's chief. Even on this dragon island, people would scramble for this ring like a flock of ducks. They couldn't wait to fight for it. However, Li Zongjiu only took a glance at it before tossing it to his maid. In Long Ji's opinion, Xiao Zhao was just Li Zongjiu's maid. It was just that this maid was put in an important position. Wasn't he too careless? Or could it be that Li Zongjiu didn't care about the items of the Fire Dragon tribe's patriarch? Otherwise, the treasures in this ring were enough for anyone to become a peak supreme being. The wealth and treasures in this ring were enough to last a lifetime. It was just that terrifying. Li Zongjiu didn't care at all, and directly threw the ring to Xiao Zhao. Even if Xiao Zhao was a little selfish and hid some of it, it would be enough for her to make a meteoric rise. Could it be that this girl's relationship with Evil Lord wasn't very simple? She must be someone he trusted very much to be put in such an important position. Fortunately, he didn't offend Xiao Zhao before he came. Long Ji was very good at judging people. At first glance, she could tell that Xiao Zhao's aura wasn't simple. After a simple conversation, she realized that Xiao Zhao's temperament was extraordinary, so she also treated her as an equal. "Why aren't you leaving?" Li Zongjiu looked at Long Ji in front of him. The latter didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. "Miss Long Ji has just become a guest of our White Deer Mansion, and is willing to take on the role of Sky Sect Academy's tactical combat instructor," Xiao Zhao quickly said. "In that case, tactical combat suits you quite well." Li Zongjiu nodded. As if he approved of Long Ji, Li Zongjiu then looked at Ling Yan. "Why are you here too?" Chapter 1471. Ling Yan wasn't happy to hear this. "What do you mean by being here too? As if I'm not supposed to be here. You know, I used to be your class teacher." Of course, if this boast was made public, it was likely that many people wouldn't believe it. They would even think that Ling Yan had a problem in his head and was suffering from some kind of delusional disorder. However, if one were to carefully trace back Li Zongjiu's growth process, they would discover that there was indeed such a small period of time in the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. Of course, it was hard to explain this matter clearly. It wouldn't do to treat it as a big deal. Fortunately, Li Zongjiu had a good relationship with Ling Yan. After all, Ling Yan was easy to get along with. At least back then, he had stood up for Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erishur. "I heard that a great god has come to your Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Isn't it just nice for the two of you to come to our Heavenly Star Medicine Manor to give a lecture and promote the cultural exchange between our two great academies?" Ling Yan immediately said to Li Zongjiu. As long as Li Zongjiu agreed, everything would be easy to handle. Since there was such a good opportunity to block Li Zongjiu, Ling Yan naturally wouldn't let it go. "I don't think so. That guy is now in a state of being punished." Li Zongjiu knew that Ling Yan must be talking about Zhong Xianshan. Who would have thought that this Zhong Xianshan would have such a great reputation? It had only been a short while since he had been captured, and there were already people who wanted to snatch him away. However, since they had already said that Zhong Xianshan would be leaving the Sky Sect Academy for the next 70 years, unless Heavenly Star Academy went bankrupt, he couldn't leave. Rules were rules. If it was other people's rules, Li Zongjiu could break them if he wanted to. However, if it was Li Zongjiu who set the rules, it wouldn't be so easy to break them. "You're too disloyal. You're just going to give a lecture and make a guest appearance. What's the big deal? Our Heavenly Star Medicine Manor won't snatch your people," Ling Yan immediately said excitedly. He was actually rejected by Li Zongjiu. However, he suddenly remembered that Li Zongjiu had said that the other party could not leave the Tianzong Academy. "How about this? I'll bring the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's disciples to your Sky Sect Academy to listen to your lessons." It's settled then. I'll arrange it right away." Ling Yan also knew that Li Zongjiu was very principled, and he wouldn't change what he said, no matter if it was good or bad. He didn't give Li Zongjiu and the others a chance to go back on their words. He jogged all the way out. It was as if he was still pleased with the success of his scheme. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If such an expert were to give a lecture, how could the scale of the lecture be small? Fortunately, he was quick-witted. Why do I have a strange feeling? Li Zongjie frowned. Although he didn't really manage things, what did Ling Yin say just now? He wanted to bring the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's disciples directly to the Tianzong Academy to listen to his lessons? Young master, don't worry. This matter will be handled by Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao said. Looking at Li Zongjie, he seemed to be at a loss. But in fact, the Tianzong Academy was going to make a fortune. They were afraid that the other party would hide their disciples and not bring out some good disciples. The Tianzong Academy would definitely take advantage of this opportunity to thoroughly display their strength. They would show it in front of these students. Then these disciples would know how to choose in the future. They didn't expect that the signboard of Zhongxian Mountain would be so useful here. It was a good little trick. Of course, I'll leave it to you. I'll go out for a walk. Li Zongjie waved his hand and said, these trivial matters. He naturally wouldn't waste time to deal with them. Li Zongjie also needed to spend more time on his own cultivation. He didn't need to worry about these things. In the secular world, there were many people who had been tied down by these things because they coveted power. However, Li Zongjie didn't have such a tie at all. After all, Li Zongjie didn't care about things like power at all. That was why he had such a free and easy cultivation realm. It wasn't easy for him to cultivate until now. After all, it was a new life. Not everyone could understand the choice of things. In fact, sometimes this cultivation talent didn't have much to do with it. It just depended on whether one could focus. If one could focus, then it was equivalent to success. Many disciples of big families were quite talented, but in the process of cultivation, they were thinking about fighting for power all day long. Although they seemed to be focused on cultivation, no one knew what kind of things were going on in the dark. Therefore, it led to the slow progress of their cultivation, and it was easy for them to go berserk. Li Zongjie had never experienced these things, so there was nothing much to say. After strolling and relaxing in the Sacred Flame Royal City, Li Zongjie went to a restaurant and ordered a delicious boiled fish. The chefs in the city were indeed unique in terms of their culinary skills. However, he didn't know that there was a place called the God of Cooking Department among the disciples of the Sky Sect Academy. He didn't know if the dishes made by this department were delicious. After eating a big meal, he wandered aimlessly on the streets. The current Sacred Flame Royal City was stable and prosperous. There wasn't a single beggar on the streets and alleys. After all, the White Deer Mansion and headquarters were here. How could they let this place be shabby? In comparison, the current Sacred Flame Royal City was even more famous than Heaven and Earth Sacred City. After all, this was the former imperial capital, and now the #1 mansion in the world was here. The famous 4 great academies were also established here. Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, Imperial Martial Pavilion, Azure Sea Academy, Sky Sect Academy, Purple Pill Academy and Four Seas Medicine Manor had already moved away. After all, the competition in this place was too strong, and they couldn't compete with those big families. They had obediently moved to Heaven and Earth Sacred City. At least in Heaven and Earth Sacred City, these 2 academies were more or less competitive. There was a wishing river in the Sacred Flame Royal City. Almost every night, there would be countless people releasing wishing lanterns there. However, it was just a scam by a businessman. As soon as you released your wishing lantern, someone downstream would pick it up. It was mainly for the sake of auspiciousness. Therefore, this wishing river itself was quite famous. Today, there were still many people releasing their own wishing lanterns in front of the wishing river. Li Zongjie happened to be walking by the river. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. Then there was a splash. A woman who was squatting by the river suddenly had her head bitten off by a black shadow that flew out from the river. Only her body was left squatting on the ground. Blood spurted out from her neck like a fountain. It almost splashed 3 meters high. Then, the headless corpse slowly fell into the river. Immediately, the river splashed a few more times. Fresh blood gushed out from the ground. When they saw such a bloody scene, how could the surrounding ordinary people endure it? Such a shocking scene immediately caused the crowd to be in chaos. Screams could not be heard. The frightened crowd kept retreating. However, there were more people. Some people, in their panic, missed a step and were directly pushed from the bridge into the river. Now, some kind of monster had appeared in the river. It actually came specially. If they fell in, they would definitely die. Splash! Splash! A few people directly fell into the river. Then, they were quickly drowned by the river. They didn't even have the chance to struggle. It was as if they were directly dragged into the water by something terrifying. Li Zongjio saw that under the river, there seemed to be something moving at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, they looked extremely strange. Within a 1-meter radius of them, it was pitch black, and they couldn't see anything clearly. It was time to swallow up the few rays of light in the water. Abyss Clan. After seeing this, Li Zongjio was surprised. The abyssal race had actually found this place. Shouldn't the abyssal race appear in the sea? However, as long as there was water, the abyssal race would be able to reach it. The city guards are here. Li Zongjio didn't make a move. Just now many people died in an instant. If Li Zongjio wanted to make a move, he could naturally save them. However, he didn't have to do it. Everyone's life and death were predestined. Li Zongjio had the ability to change the life and death of others. However, it didn't mean that he had to do it all the time. In this way, it was equivalent to directly grafting the cause and effect of others' life and death onto himself. Suddenly, Li Zongjio had such an epiphany in his heart. When this epiphany appeared, Li Zongjio was immediately surprised. Strange, why would I have such a thought? Li Zongjio didn't know where this thought came from. It seemed to be actively generated in his mind. Everyone leave the river. There was no lack of experts in the city guards. Before, Li Zongjio also cultivated Wang Ding and the others. According to the current situation, Wang Ding was now the commander of the city guards. Wang Ding. In the crowd, Li Zongjio also saw Wang Ding, who was dressed in martial attire, rushing towards him. There was a kind of expert behind him. He seemed to have been prepared for the situation that had just unfolded. He directly ordered his men to line up on the shore. Then, he used a kind of extremely fast nail gun with a rope hanging on it. Boom! They exploded into the river. Whoosh! Chapter 1472. The flying spears immediately broke through the water and plunged downwards rapidly. However, these spears were made of steel and could not cause any damage to the Abyssal Clan below. There were also some terrifying Abyssal Clan members who used their sharp claws to pierce the surface of the water directly towards the people on the shore. Many soldiers were directly penetrated by the sharp spikes of the Abyssal Clan members. Ah, save me, save me. Seeing this, Wang Ding leaped up and slashed at the spikes released by the Abyssal Clan members. Boom! However, Wang Ding could not cut off the strange spikes of the Abyssal Clan members, even though he was at the Yuan Emperor realm. Suddenly, a strong rebounding force hit him. Boom! Wang Ding was knocked back to the shore. The Abyssal Clan members who were pierced by the spikes were directly brought into the river and turned into a pool of blood in just a moment. What? Damn monster, give me back my brother! Wang Ding said as he prepared to continue his attack. However, this time, the abyssal monsters in the river had already set their sights on Wang Ding. After all, among so many experts present, Wang Ding was the only one who felt a trace of pressure. Swoosh! A mysterious spike quickly extended out, looking like an elongated bone. It rushed towards Wang Ding at an extremely fast speed. Protect the commander! The bodyguard beside Wang Ding hurriedly shielded him behind him. This kind of dedication in times of need had been honed long ago, and there was no need for additional commands. However, just as the black bone spike was about to approach, a surging sword aura suddenly swept over from afar. At the same time, there was an arrow with a little blue light on it. Swoosh! Ding! The arrow hit the black bone spike instantly. Immediately, the blue light on the arrow turned into a terrifying icy power. It poured out crazily and completely froze the black bone spur in front of him. At the same time, a sword aura descended. It instantly cut off the black bone spike. Boom! The power of the sword aura was not strong, and was only at the Yuan Emperor realm. However, it could cause a better effect than Wang Ding's previous attack. After all, Wang Ding's previous attack did not have any effect. Frozen river surface. A handsome young man with a sharp sword in his hand appeared in the sky. Following the young man's command, he looked at the bridge not far away. She was tall and slender, and she held an azure bow in her hand. Her eyes were sharp. He knocked an arrow on his bow and shot it toward the river without hesitation. Boom! Immediately, an icy blue power froze the surface of the river into extremely thick ice. The surface of the river was instantly frozen. It seemed that the danger was temporarily under control. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Ding's reaction wasn't slow either. He immediately commanded the city guards to clear out the remaining citizens. If they continued to stay here, they would definitely be in danger. Keep your eyes on the river. Use the mountain-piercing crossbows, Wang Ding ordered. After arranging a series of matters, he went to meet the two young heroes who had just made a move. Where did you two come from? Tell me your names. As the commander of the city guards, Wang Ding had an official position. Naturally, he wouldn't be so polite to ordinary people. Moreover, the two young men in front of him looked like they were still wet behind the ears. It was normal for them to have some tricks up their sleeves. However, he couldn't let these young men think that they were invincible. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Azure Ocean Academy Jifu. Azure Ocean Academy Chenfeng. Greetings, sir. The two of them were polite and not arrogant. However, this was only on the surface. Although they said that they were greeting, their actions were very honest. They didn't make any movements. They even purposely showed off in front of Wang Ding, as if they wanted to say that they helped him settle this matter. So it's the two of you. In Wang Ding's eyes, there was a look of realization. He thought that they were some young men who weren't afraid of death, who knew that they were here to poke their nose into other people's business. They were the new top 10 outstanding youths in the Sacred Flame Royal City. Just in the Azure Ocean Academy alone, there were 6 of them. These 6 people had gone through various competitions and were selected through various rounds of selection. They possessed powerful strength. Therefore, they were quite famous in the Sacred Flame Royal City. They could be said to be outstanding existences. Even the overall quality was much better than the batch a few years ago. Although Li Zongjio had obtained the title of the #1 alchemist because of his alchemy skills, he didn't obtain the ranking of the most influential people in the Sacred Flame Royal City. This was because he didn't participate in it at all. He had never paid attention to these things. Sir, these abyssal monsters aren't something that you can deal with. Ajin, leave this place to the Azure Ocean Academy. Although Chen Feng's words sounded very courteous, and he was willing to contribute, there was a sense of ordering Wang Ding. It was as if he was saying that this place wasn't something that he could deal with. Leaving quickly was the smart choice. When Chen Feng spoke, Jifu didn't say anything. However, there was a slight coldness in her eyes. She didn't continue to look at Wang Ding. Instead, she focused her attention on the river below. It was as if she didn't want to waste too much time on Wang Ding. Impudent. Is the Azure Ocean Academy trying to rebel? This is the matter of the city guards. It has nothing to do with you. If you don't leave quickly, I'll throw you into the dungeon. One of Wang Ding's adjutants rushed out and said. The other party obviously didn't put Wang Ding in their eyes. If the latter was allowed to be arrogant, how could the city guards have any status in the future? They were actually disregarded by this group of stinky brats. This was an extremely arrogant and excessive behavior. They had to put an end to such a thing. This matter shouldn't have happened to these students. Even if the city guards were all dead, they couldn't have allowed these people to come. There were laws in the country. In the Sacred Flame Royal City, there were naturally rules that belonged to the Sacred Flame Royal City. If you were strong, you could casually intervene in the affairs of the government. If this wasn't rebellion, what was it? Fortunately, these people were all students. Otherwise, they would definitely end up in a miserable state. Wang Ding was the first to bring people to raid these people's homes. The ice is about to break, Ji Fu, who was wearing a blue armor, said. The set of equipment on her body was also a treasure of the Azure Ocean Academy. They had spent a lot of money to obtain it. It was extremely powerful. Just now, it was the power of the black ice bow that froze the other party. The layer of ice on the surface of the river was also because of the black ice bow. But now it obviously couldn't hold on for too long. The layer of ice below was rapidly breaking apart. Rumble. Suddenly, a turbulent force broke through the ice. Li Zongjiu looked over. It seemed that a powerful character had appeared among these abyssal monsters. Wang Ding's subordinates hurriedly aimed the mountain-piercing crossbows in their hands at the same point below, and directly shot forward. Immediately, the whooshing sound of the arrows breaking through the air made one's scalp numb. The feeling of the sharp arrows cutting through space naturally made everyone's heart tremble. They felt as if they were about to be split in half. Dozens of mountain-piercing crossbows were shot from both sides of the river to the bottom. However, there was not the slightest movement from below. Even Chen Feng's eyes showed a trace of doubt. Be careful. Ji Fu's perception was slightly stronger. Suddenly, she heard a trace of penetrating force coming from the river. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as she finished her sentence, dozens of mountain-piercing crossbows returned to where they came from and pierced through the bodies of the archers who were operating the crossbows. Some of them dodged slightly, but the crossbow bolts directly hit their heads. Instantly their heads exploded. This scene was extremely bloody. There were originally some commoners who were watching the show, but when they saw this scene, they all screamed and quickly ran away. This scene was too terrifying. Ever since the era of peace and prosperity, they had never seen such a thrilling scene. Throw the black fire grenades in. Wang Ding was furious when he saw this. So many of his subordinates were killed in an instant. Such a situation had never happened before. He couldn't let these meta beasts continue to be arrogant. He had to end this quickly. Immediately, the city guards threw the black fire grenades in their hands. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The dull black fire grenades fell into the river and sank rapidly. However, these black fire grenades didn't seem to have the effect that they were supposed to have. Just like a stone, it was easily swallowed up by the river in front of him. It disappeared without a trace, and there was not the slightest movement. Your black fire grenades have all been eaten. This kind of creature eats everything. Ordinary moves can't hurt them. Qin Feng said. What did you say? Why do you know so much about these things? Wang Ding was sharp enough to notice that something was wrong. He had just received news that such a situation might happen. Just as he was preparing, such a thing happened. He had prepared something to attack the underwater meta beasts. But how did Qin Feng and the others know about it? From the looks of it, they seemed to have received some information long ago. It's a serious crime to not report what you know. Wang Ding's eyes instantly turned fierce. Leader Wang, the dean asked us to help you. Just as Wang Ding was about to interrogate these people, he saw 3 figures flying over on their swords from afar. A man and 2 women. Leading them was a woman wearing white boots and a snow-white robe. Chapter 1473. Wang Ding turned around and saw 3 people approaching. He was familiar with these people. The 3 people in front of him were disciples of Tianzong Academy. The leading woman in white was called Xia Shui. She was currently the most talented disciple in Tianzong Academy. Whether it was alchemy or Yuanli, she was a top-notch existence. Most importantly, she had a high level of comprehension, although she started a little late. However, there were simply too many elixirs in Tianzong Academy. Xia Shui's cultivation had been forcibly raised. After all, Tianzong Academy also needed someone who could support the scene. Although Tianzong Academy had only been established for less than 2 years. Fortunately, Xia Shui was pushed to become one of the top 10 influential youths. Her performance was outstanding. As a result, 3 of the top 10 influential youths in the city had come. As for the junior brothers and sisters behind Xia Shui, they were responsible for supporting the scene. Seeing that the other party was Chen Feng and Ji Fu, Xia Shui's eyes also had a trace of seriousness. After all, the other party's strength was not simple. The 2 academies were also competing with each other. Wang Ding was one of Li Zongjiu's people. Tianzong Academy was established under Li Zongjiu's name. So Wang Ding also had the title of Instructor Wu in Tianzong Academy. Whenever a new student joined, They would first have to undergo a hellish military training. It was a good opportunity to dampen the spirit of these geniuses. This tradition was also established by Tianzong Academy's dean, Lan Yiyan. Such a unique way of thinking, such a mysterious idea. Only Lan Yiyan could think of and implement it. Through this method, it could help the students adapt to the life in the academy faster. At the same time, it would also be more strict in terms of discipline. If the discipline was not strict, it would naturally be useless if you did not obey the discipline, even if you were a genius. If you wanted to show off your character, there would naturally be a lot of time for you to show off when you left the academy. However, during your days in the academy, you had to obediently listen to the instructors. Otherwise, there was no need to go to Tianzong Academy. Therefore, Xia Shui and the others were familiar with Wang Ding. And Wang Ding was also very polite to his own people. When your headmaster sent you all here to help, did he mention what those things were? Wang Ding had no idea what the thing in front of him was. He had only received news earlier that some powerful water-type meta-beasts would appear in the river in the city. But he didn't expect it to be so powerful. It's an abyssal monster, Xia Shui said. At the same time, Xia Shui also pulled out an extremely cold sword in her hand. Cold light radiated from it. Just by approaching it, one would feel as if one's flesh and blood had been frozen. This was an ice-type demigod artifact. Chen Feng and Ji Fu also looked at him enviously. Quasi-artifact. If Xia Shui didn't have this semi-artifact in her hands, it would be impossible for her to squeeze into the top 10 outstanding youths. Don't you think it's such a coincidence? He just so happened to have a demigod tool. Although this was equivalent to cheating, after all, this semi-divine tool was given to him by the dean of the Tianzong Academy. After giving it to Xia Shui, it naturally belonged to her. It was normal for her to be recognized as a part of her strength. The sword in Xia Shui's hand was called Falling Snow. Freezing falling snow. Xia Shui waved her sword aura. The river water in front of them suddenly changed, and ice once again condensed. The river water below was condensed into even thicker ice. Even from afar, one could feel the cold air from the surface of the ice river. You're just relying on the power of the falling snow sword. What's so great about that? Ji Fu said disdainfully and rolled her eyes. It seems like someone is also relying on the power of the Guanghan Bao. Otherwise, who knows how unbearable it would be. Xia Shui naturally saw Ji Fu and the others. Since Xia Shui appeared, Chen Feng's eyes were full of adoration. Compared to the shrewish Ji Fu beside him, he preferred Xia Shui, who was like an ice beauty. Only such a snow mountain could arouse his interest in conquering it. This layer of ice won't last long. The best way to get rid of these abyssal monsters is to fish them up. Kill them on the shore. This was the simplest and most direct way. If they were hiding in the water, it would be at least 10 times more difficult to find them and kill them. Wang Ding saw that these people were discussing. Obviously, they wanted to personally deal with these abyssal monsters. However, Wang Ding's intuition told him that the origins of these abyssal monsters were not to be underestimated. They were absolutely not something that these youngsters could deal with. He also didn't know what the deans were thinking, sending these people to their deaths. If things went wrong, something big would happen. Li Zongjiu did not leave. Instead, he stood on the other side of the river. He was more aware of the current situation. However, Li Zongjiu's eyes soon looked below the ice river. Because of the energy gathering here, a few young experts had directly attracted a large number of abyssal monsters. Although they had not yet broken out of the ice, it was obvious that breaking this thin layer of ice was something that would happen sooner or later. Li Zongjiu was not in a hurry to make a move. Since there were disciples of his Tianzong Academy here, he would first observe the performance of these disciples. He wanted to see if the time that Lan Yuyan had spent on training them was really effective. If the people they cultivated were so weak that they could not withstand a single blow, then they would have to consider changing the management or changing the teaching model. Of course, Li Zongjiu was also extremely biased towards his own people. No matter how strong or weak Xia Shui and the others were, they were still disciples of his Tianzong Academy. These abyssal monsters had no right to kill them. They're coming, Li Zongjiu called out softly, which was also a reminder. The voice suddenly reminded Xia Shui and the others. Originally, Xia Shui and the others were also discussing the plan, but they did not have a unified opinion. Suddenly, they heard the voice and immediately became alert. At the same time, they looked at the surface of the ice river. However, Xia Shui frowned. Her eyes searched around in the darkness, trying to find the owner of the voice just now. Kacha! The ice layer gradually melted and broke. With Xia Shui's ability, naturally, there was no way to freeze the entire river. Soon, the broken ice was directly washed away by the river water. The river surface was restored to the water surface again, not the ice layer. But at the same time, the surface of the river became quite calm, just like a mirror. Logically speaking, although the river surface was not as turbulent as the sea, it was definitely not as calm as a mirror. Several people clenched the swords in their hands. Wang Ding waved his hand. Immediately, someone used a flying rope, and the soldiers on both sides directly formed a net of flying ropes. Iron chain net formation. There were sharp blades and spikes on the iron ropes, and the spikes were coated with strong poison. If anything jumped out of the river, it would be directly cut, and then poisoned. The night itself was dark, but now, the river seemed to have become even darker. Bang! Suddenly, there was an explosion. Look! A soldier lowered his head abruptly, and saw that the floor beneath his feet had actually cracked open in an instant. Even the stake he used to nail the iron chain had been directly shaken askew. Everyone retreat! Xia Shui saw this and quickly shouted, "Drag them back!" As soon as the voice fell, the two helpers brought by Xia Shui also acted and quickly grabbed the soldiers who were leaning on the shore. In the next second, the stones and soil on the shore were instantly shattered by a strange force. The sand instantly irrigated the river. They are widening the river. Widening the river. This river had been through tens of thousands of years, and had long been fixed in shape. In most cases, it was met with solid stones on both sides, so it was impossible to continue widening. But now these abyssal demons directly widened the river, so that they could go wherever they wanted to go. Force them to come up. Chen Feng did not act to save these soldiers. In his opinion, these people were not strong enough, so they should not come up to add to the trouble. Otherwise, things would become more troublesome, and in the most situation, these people would just die in vain. Ji Fu pulled the Guanghan bow in her hand, and 3 frost feather arrows rushed out. When they rushed to the river surface, they immediately exploded. Boom! The situation at the scene suddenly became turbulent. 3 waves were blown up on the river surface. In these waves, there were more than 10 abyssal demons hidden. Tyrant Mystic Tiger. Chen Feng stomped his foot and released the power of his origin spirit. Level 6 Origin Spirit. Level 6 Mystic Beast 8 Mystic Tiger. Boom! Then, the Tyrant Mystic Tiger turned into sword energy and killed the abyssal demons in front of it. Instantly, sword energy flew and tigers and wolves roared. In the blink of an eye, several abyssal demons were quickly cut in half. They fell to the ground. After struggling for a while, they lost their vitality. Then, they turned into a pool of transparent liquid. Seeing this, Chen Feng looked at Xia Shui with great pride, as if to say that his method was the most effective method. But when Xia Shui saw the pool of liquid on the ground, she could not help but frown. This liquid was formed by the bodies of the abyssal demons. But how did the bodies of the abyssal demons turn into a pool of liquid? It was really strange. General Wang, please quickly evacuate everyone and maintain order on the street. Don't let anyone come close, or there will be countless casualties. Xia Shui pleaded. Everyone listen to my order. Retreat 500 meters, and leave the Mystic King experts. Wang Ding was not stupid. He would not let people die in vain. Chapter 1474. After everyone was dismissed, there were still close to 10 Yuan monarch experts left behind. After all, they could only bring a portion of the city guard army with them. It was impossible to mobilize all of the city guard army's experts. The rest of the city guard army had to stay in their own territories to ensure the order of the rest of the place. The situation had changed faster than they had imagined. With the support of Ji Fu and the power of his own soul, Chen Feng knocked hundreds of abyssal monsters out of the water and easily killed them. The corpses of the hundreds of abyssal monsters had all turned into transparent liquid and scattered all over the ground. Stop! Don't kill anymore. This is their scheme. Xia Shui saw the transparent liquid piled up all over the ground. The origin of these mysterious liquids was unknown. They suddenly appeared and were almost arranged on the ground. At a glance, it looked very orderly. How could there be such a coincidence? It must be a trap. When Chen Feng heard Xia Shui's words, he thought that Xia Shui was jealous of his killing speed. He immediately laughed. Xia Shui, I think you've wasted your time on the billboard. You'd better back off. Leave these things to me. Chen Feng was obviously very confident. Suddenly, a large group of black shadows rushed out from the river. After these black shadows appeared, they rushed toward Chen Feng at the same time. Chen Feng didn't expect the attacks of the abyssal tribe to be so ferocious. However, no matter how ferocious the attacks were, as long as he kept a certain distance, the abyssal tribe wouldn't be able to do anything to him. All their attacks would be ineffective. The attack was nullified, and the abyssal tribe quickly returned to the water. Chen Feng retreated rapidly, wanting to keep a distance from this group of abyssal demons. There were several sneak attacks just now, but they were all bark and no bite. They couldn't get close to Chen Feng at all. That was why Chen Feng could keep repeating the same trick and kill so many abyssal monsters. However, this time, the abyssal monster had no intention of retreating. Instead, it quickly chased after Chen Feng. What? With the help of the weak light. Chen Feng also clearly saw the appearance of these abyssal monsters. They looked like spiders, but they had a total of 16 legs. Moreover, there was a transparent mucosal net between their legs. It was this special structure that allowed these abyssal monsters to bring the prey on the shore directly into the water. Swish! Just as Chen Feng was retreating, powerless to defend himself, an arrow flew over from the side. Ji Fu had killed an abyssal monster near Chen Feng. His body exploded in the air, turning into a transparent liquid that fell to the ground. This gave Chen Feng a chance to catch his breath. After landing on the ground, the abyssal monsters retreated continuously. However, after landing on the ground, the abyssal monsters didn't show any signs of discomfort. Xia Shui observed for a while. The places where these abyssal monsters fell were also where the transparent liquid was. If there were some places that weren't replenished, they would directly kill their companions and use the transparent liquid piled up by their companions' corpses to continue approaching and attacking. Chen Feng hadn't seen it clearly yet, so he couldn't understand how these abyssal monsters could come ashore. However, a large number of monsters had already rushed to the shore and clashed with Wang Ding and the others. The falling snow in Xia Shui's hand surged with cold light and sword energy. In an instant, several terrifying ice roads appeared under her feet. Not only did it freeze the abyssal monsters along the way, but it also froze the transparent liquid released by these abyssal monsters. As soon as they touched the ground, they would directly turn into a pool of transparent liquid. It was like the feeling of being killed. This should also be a curse belonging to the abyssal clan. They could never go ashore. If they went ashore, only death would await them. However, there were too many abyssal monsters. Just by paving the road with their corpses, they could directly pounce on a path. Boom! An abyssal monster that was nearly 10 meters tall rushed out directly. When this demonic monster rushed out, it could clearly feel an extremely strong sense of oppression coming at it. Not good. It's a higher level abyssal monster. We can't resist it. Xia Shui saw this abyssal monster and knew that this was a serious matter. I'll hold this thing back. You guys go to the academy and ask for help. Little you go to the White Deer Mansion and ask for help. Xia Shui shouted in a low voice. The 10-meter-tall abyssal monster appeared in front of them. It was as if a small mountain was blocking their path. Eldest senior sister. Go quickly. This is an order. Xia Shui shouted. If they were still hesitant in front of danger, it was equivalent to courting death. Therefore, they must not be soft-hearted. Hearing the word order, the two of them were stunned. Their hearts skipped a beat. Then, they calmed themselves down and quickly fled into the distance. Li Zhongjiu saw this scene and nodded. This little girl was not bad. At least her character could be said to be very to Li Zongjio's liking. She never did things sloppily. She was the same as San Tong. San Tong, who had been foreseen in the past, also had the same willpower. After some nurturing, he would be able to play a big role. San Tong was currently training disciples for the Li family. He had even specially cultivated an extremely elite assassination squad. In fact, now the Li family's various methods could be said to be endless, and they had expanded their strength in all aspects. It was impossible for Li Zongjio to figure it out. However, when facing the enemy, if he only thought about waiting for others to come to his aid, he would be killed sooner or later. If he really wanted to be rescued, he had to become stronger. This strongest abyssal monster was completely blocked by Xia Shui. On the other hand, there was a big mistake on Chen Feng's side. First, Chen Feng was stabbed by the other party. Even his inner armor was directly penetrated, and there was a bloody hole in his waist. After that, Chen Feng was also quite passive. If it were not for Ji Fu's support, he would probably have been killed by these abyssal monsters. Wang Ding led the city guards to fight these abyssal monsters. The abyssal monsters' combat power was similar to the Yuan King realm. As long as they reached the Yuan King realm, they could resist them. Moreover, Wang Ding himself was a Yuan King, so killing him was extremely easy. Boom! Another 10-meter-tall abyssal monster rushed out of the river. Xia Shui had blocked one with great difficulty, and now there was another one. Let me do it! Wang Ding roared, broke away from the city guard's battle formation, and rushed toward the 10-meter-tall abyssal monster. This 10-meter-tall abyssal monster's strength was roughly equivalent to a peak Yuan King, or a half-step Yuan King realm. Therefore, it was very easy for Wang Ding to block it. However, from the river, 3 10-meter-tall abyssal monsters continued to jump out one after another. They quickly charged toward Chen Feng and Ji Fu. Be careful! Xia Shui saw this scene, and immediately shouted to remind the two of them. However, this shout also allowed her opponent to find a gap. A sudden spike directly pierced toward her heart. It was extremely swift and fierce. Immediately, Xia Shui felt as though she had been targeted and was about to be killed. It was this feeling that made Xia Shui's body stiffen. Bo! However, the piercing pain that she had imagined piercing through her body did not come. She looked down. The spikes of the other party's spider legs had been cut off unknowingly. Of course, only the one that was attacking her had been cut off. Xia Shui did not have time to be puzzled. The sword aura of the cold sword in her hand increased greatly. The sword slashed the abyssal monster in front of her. The cold air instantly poured into the abyssal monster's body, freezing it completely. Break! She raised her hand and killed the abyssal monster in front of her with a palm. The other party's body directly turned into ice shards and fell to the ground. Xia Shui withdrew her palm. Suddenly, she thought of the situation of Chen Feng and the others and turned her head. She saw Chen Feng's head being directly cut off by the spiked spider leg of an abyssal monster. In an instant, he was thrown dozens of meters high, and blood splattered all over the sky. When Xia Shui saw this scene, she was even stunned for a moment. Naturally, she had seen dead people before. She had even killed many bad people. However, Chen Feng was someone she was familiar with. In the blink of an eye, his head flew 6 meters from the ground, and he was completely dead. This was the first time she had seen such a shocking scene. After all, Chen Feng was an old opponent of hers. But now, his head was directly cut off by these abyssal monsters. Such a feeling from the beginning to the end was a great shock to Xia Shui. In fact, Chen Feng didn't have to die so quickly. Naturally, it was because Li Zongjio had done something. Since he intended to train Xia Shui, he had to let Xia Shui experience a bloody scene. Only in this way could she grow up quickly. Of course, such an action was naturally a little cruel in the eyes of others. However, Li Zongjio didn't care. I don't care about you. If you have any different opinions, then come to me and tell me. If I can't change your opinion, I can kill you directly. So he let Xia Shui see this scene. Chen Feng. Ji Fu was also stunned when she saw this. Chen Feng had the protection of the jade pendant. How could he be killed in an instant? When Chen Feng's body fell to the ground, a light screen appeared. It was the protection jade pendant that Jifu was thinking about. Obviously, someone intervened and stopped the activation of the jade pendant. Evil creature. A thunderous voice came from the sky, instantly exploding in their ears. Then, a strong gust of wind came and crushed the 3 abyssal demons near Jifu into pieces. Chapter 1475. It turned out that Jifu was also surrounded by 3 abyssal monsters. And Jifu was actually absent-minded just now. Fortunately, a gust of wind appeared in time and killed the 3 abyssal monsters. Li Zongjio took a glance and saw that it was an expert at the pinnacle of the primitive emperor realm. However, Li Zongjio didn't know the other party. He hadn't seen him before. Perhaps in these 2 years, the number of experts had exploded like a geyser. Such a situation couldn't be ruled out. When this expert at the pinnacle of the primitive emperor realm attacked, he easily killed the abyssal monsters in front of him. Boom! Immediately, these abyssal monsters retreated rapidly, as if they had received an order. Xia Shui was also stunned when she saw this scene. Wang Ding took advantage of the situation and cut off the leg of the abyssal monster he was fighting. At the same time, he slashed the latter into 2 halves. If the opponent wanted to escape, then their will to fight was much weaker. Therefore, in this battle, momentum was very important. One absolutely could not relax like this. One must maintain one's own fighting strength. If you only think about running away, or if you just want to barely resist, then there is a possibility that the opponent will find an opportunity to kill you. The rest of the abyssal monsters quickly escaped from the river, leaving a mess on the ground and several corpses. 2 of the city guards were also killed. Wang Ding would definitely reward these 2 for their heroic sacrifice. There was also another person, Chen Feng, whose head flew more than 20 meters away. Chen Feng, the old man who came with the power of wind and thunder, directly landed in front of Chen Feng and saw Chen Feng's corpse. He couldn't believe it. Even its head had been chopped off. Just how brutal was the battle just now? These things were actually so vicious. Academician Chen Songyuan. Jifu was also shocked when she saw the person who came. At the same time, she knew that something bad was going to happen. The person who came was called Chen Songyuan. In the Azure Ocean Academy, there wasn't an elder position. However, after a person had taught for many years, accumulated enough contributions, and improved their strength, they would be promoted to an academician. It was equivalent to the position of an elder. However, the Azure Ocean Academy wanted to do something different. Hence, they were all called academicians. The worst part was academician Chen Song. Coincidentally, he was Chen Feng's father. How could anyone bear to see their own son beheaded? This was a huge blow to Chen Song. Furthermore, in order to nurture Chen Feng, Chen Song could be said to have poured in his entire life's worth of effort. As long as Chen Feng grew up in the future, he would definitely be a limitless existence. But now his head was separated from his body. This made Chen Song extremely sad. Wang Ding and Xia Shui gathered. At the same time, they arrived before Chen Feng. After all, Chen Feng had been killed for the sake of protecting the sacred flame royal city. In the end, he had acted courageously. Academician Chen, please restrain your grief. My city guards will apply for a Good Samaritan award for young hero Chen Feng, so that people will remember young hero Chen Feng's contribution to the sacred flame royal city. Wang Ding said. He could only agree to this thing. He couldn't give anything else. At most, he would give a symbolic reward. Hence, this was also why Wang Ding rejected the help of these people. After all, in this kind of situation, it was fine if you didn't die in the end. At most, you would have to apply for some medical expenses. However, your strength wasn't enough, and you died directly. Who was to blame for this? You died for nothing. If the parents were more open-minded, they wouldn't come and cause trouble. However, there would always be some people who didn't know what was good for them, and insisted on causing trouble. Of course, Wang Ding wasn't afraid of these troublemakers, but it was still an annoying thing. Hence, it was a very good choice to resolve this earlier. It was best if they didn't join. If they needed to join, the city guards would also notify them. There were rules and regulations. Now that Chen Feng was dead, wouldn't he have died for nothing? No need. Thank you, General Wang Ding. Chen Song let out a long sigh. Who was to blame for this? No one would have thought that things would turn out like this. In itself, it was just a failure trial. The Azure Sea Academy wanted to be in front of others and establish meritorious deeds and prestige. This was to increase the reputation of the Azure Sea Academy. However, they didn't expect that they would lose their only son's life in this battle. Academician Chen Feng was killed by someone. Just when Chen Song was about to take Chen Feng's body away, Ji Fu, who was at the side, spoke. At the same time, she looked at Wang Ding and Xia Shui with an extremely vigilant and scrutinizing gaze. She was an archer herself, so her perception of her surroundings was extremely sharp. However, at the moment when she sensed that Chen Feng was in danger, there was indeed an inexplicable force that appeared, preventing the power of Chen Feng's amulet from activating. At the same time, it also fixed Chen Feng's body. Although it was only for a short moment, the consequences were obvious. There was no resistance at all, and there was no way to reverse the situation. His head was chopped off. How strong was the opponent? Ji Fu, what did you say? Chen Song immediately looked at Ji Fu, obviously in disbelief. He then looked at Xia Shui and Wang Ding. Of course, his gaze eventually locked onto Xia Shui. This was because Xia Shui was a member of the Tianzong Academy. Although there wasn't any deep hatred between the two academies, they were still in a competitive relationship. Xia Shui and Chen Feng had fought in the arena before, but Xia Shui was defeated in the end. Now that Xia Shui also appeared in such an occasion, it was indeed possible that she secretly attacked Chen Feng and killed him. However, Xia Shui's big eyes also widened. Thinking back, the scene she saw was indeed a little too coincidental. However, it was just a coincidence. She only had time to turn around and see Chen Feng's head flying off. She didn't see anything else. Little girl, you have to take responsibility for your nonsense. Are you saying that someone in the city guard army deliberately attacked and killed Chen Feng? Wang Ding was instantly unhappy. This little girl's words clearly meant that he was the one who did it. After all, he was the only one present who had such strength. No, Chen Feng's amulet was tampered with by someone. It wasn't activated when he was in danger. Instead, it was activated after his death. This means that someone secretly suppressed the power of Chen Feng's amulet. Moreover, although the abyssal monster's attack speed is fast, with Chen Feng's speed, he was absolutely confident that he could dodge it. There must be a strong person hiding in the dark here. It was this person who killed senior brother Chen Feng. As she spoke, Ji Fu also used her sharp eyes to size up the surrounding environment, trying to find the person who secretly attacked them. The opponent's method was simply superb and mysterious. Perhaps his target wasn't only senior brother Chen Feng, but also the rest of them. If they couldn't find the opponent, there would still be people from the Azure Sea Academy who would be mysteriously assassinated in the future. The opponent's method was no different from an assassination. Who is it? Get out here. Thinking that his child was actually assassinated, Chen Song couldn't care less. How could Chen Song care so much? He was already very sad, but he didn't expect such a turn of events. Now, even if these people had nothing to do with him, Chen Song would definitely vent his anger on them. This matter would definitely not be settled so easily. However, no matter how hard the two of them searched, they couldn't find Li Zongjio. In fact, Li Zongjio was standing not far away, but the difference between their realms was too great. There was no comparison at all. Therefore, even if Chen Song used all his strength, it was impossible for him to find Li Zongjio. He had such a powerful strength in the first place. He couldn't find the person who secretly attacked them, since the opponent killed Chen Feng and didn't kill Xia Shui and the rest. This meant that this matter was related to Xia Shui. It's you. It must be someone from your Tianzong Academy. Despicable and shameless. I'll take you down now. I don't believe that the person hiding in the dark won't appear. Chen Song couldn't find Li Zongjio, so he directly locked his eyes on Xia Shui. After all, Xia Shui was from the Tianzong Academy. Chen Feng died, but she was fine. Your strength was obviously weaker than Chen Feng. How could you be alive? At this moment, Chen Song didn't care about anything and directly grabbed at Xia Shui. Xia Shui's face suddenly changed. The opponent was at the peak of the primitive emperor realm, which was almost 2 realms higher than her. Under such a huge gap, Xia Shui felt like she was imprisoned in place. The snowfall sword in his hand suddenly vibrated. It released a gust of cold air. Breaking the shackles around her, Xia Shui immediately retreated. At this moment, Wang Ding also felt Chen Song's action. Chen Song, what are you doing? How dare you kill in front of me? Xia Shui was from the Tianzong Academy. Of course, Wang Ding had to protect her well, and not allow anyone to bully her. Otherwise, if the White Deer Mansion blamed him, even Wang Ding wouldn't be able to bear it. Moreover, Xia Shui's identity wasn't simple. She was now the person recommended by the Tianzong Academy in order to cultivate Xia Shui. How could he let Chen Song kill her? However, Chen Song was a peak primitive emperor expert after all. He wasn't someone Wang Ding, and the rest could stop. Those who block me will die. Chen Song shouted fiercely, but he didn't kill Wang Ding. A palm of wind and thunder directly sent Wang Ding and more than 10 Yuan King experts flying. The gap between realms was obvious. His figure instantly appeared in front of Xia Shui, and then he grabbed her neck. His eyes looked into the darkness. Chapter 1476. If you don't show up, I'll kill her. Chen Song's eyes were cold. Xia Shui was controlled by him, and she had no way to break free. Her origin energy was restricted in her body, and the snowfall sword fell to the ground with a clang. Chen Song's 5 fingers tightened and Xia Shui immediately felt a strong sense of suffocation. Chen Song, if she dies, everyone in your Azure Ocean Academy will die. Wang Ding quickly said. He wasn't joking. He was serious. From the time Xiao Zhao and the others had been running all over the place to build the Sky Sect Academy, until now, one could imagine how much importance White Deer residents placed on the Sky Sect Academy. Although he hadn't seen the young lord for a long time, he had heard about the news of the young lord. But some time ago, he had heard the news of the young master's return, but Wang Ding couldn't find the opportunity to visit Li Zongjiu. Moreover, if the young master did not summon them, and if there was nothing important, they would not disturb Li Zongjiu. However, if the young lord knew that the top disciple of Sky Sect Academy, Xia Shui, had been killed, he would definitely die. According to the young lord's temperament, the tens of thousands of people in Azure Ocean Academy wouldn't be able to escape. Wang Ding was very clear about the young lord's temper. He would treat his own people as well as he could. However, to outsiders, he would be as ruthless as he could be. If you provoked the young lord, sometimes you didn't even have to take the initiative to provoke him. However, once you revealed a little bit of your consciousness and intentions, you would be in trouble. The young lord would definitely exterminate your entire family. Do you really think my Azure Ocean Academy is easy to bully? If you don't give me an explanation today, General Wang, I don't think you can leave here alive. Chen Song's eyes became terrifying. Swoosh! A command arrow shot into the sky from Jifu's hand. It was the command arrow of Azure Ocean Academy. The current situation couldn't be solved so easily. Senior brother Chen Feng's death was a very important matter to Azure Ocean Academy. If a disciple of Azure Ocean Academy died without knowing the reason, and the Academy didn't do anything about it, Azure Ocean Academy would lose its credibility. By then, Azure Ocean Academy would cease to exist. Since you don't want to come out, I won't let this matter rest. Die. Chen Song tightened his grip. He wanted to break Xia Shui's neck directly. His son was dead, and the woman in front of him definitely couldn't escape. How could he let her continue to live? Boom! Xia Shui suddenly felt her body fall to the ground. She was originally out of breath, but now she could breathe fresh air. Not far in front of him, a severed arm fell to the ground. This is... When Xia Shui saw the broken arm on the ground, her eyes widened. At the same time, he saw Chen Song's look of disbelief and extreme shock. Because this was a severed arm that had fallen to the ground. It was Chen Song's arm. Who was he? Academician Chen Song, the youngest academician of the Azure Ocean Academy. He had a bright future ahead of him. At such a young age, Chen Song was already at the pinnacle of the primitive emperor realm. At least in the Azure Sea Academy, Chun Song's strength was already at the peak. It was also something that brought honor to the family. However, the child that she was so proud of had been assassinated. This was unacceptable to him. But now, he didn't know when his arm was cut off and fell to the ground. Until he saw his arm fall to the ground. Only then did he slowly feel that his arm was no longer connected to him. A sharp pain came from the wound. My arm. Chun Song immediately covered his severed arm. Generally speaking, although a severed arm was painful, it wasn't unbearable for Chun Song. However, the pain this time was very obvious, and his Yuanli had no way to heal the injury. This made Chun Song's heart involuntarily produce a trace of fear. At the same time, a light flashed in his mind. It must be this person who killed his son. I don't know if your Azure Ocean Academy is easy to provoke, but you and I can definitely afford to provoke them. Li Zhongjiu didn't boast. After all, compared to the past, he had long been low-key. If it was in the past, he might do something. Li Zhongjiu stood with his hands behind his back. He walked slowly on the surface of the river. Xia Shui took a few breaths, and finally calmed herself down. Her small face was flushed red, and at the same time, she turned her head to look at Li Zhongjiu, who was walking over from the river. It's him. It's definitely this voice. How sharp was Xia Shui? At the very beginning, Xia Shui heard a voice reminding everyone that the ice river was about to be breached. It was this voice. The one who cut off Chun Song's arm was this expert. As for whether Chen Feng's death had anything to do with Li Zhongjiu, to be honest, Xia Shui wasn't sure. However, this was a separate matter. Chun Song was already Xia Shui's enemy, because Chun Song was ready to kill her just now. Li Zhongjiu, on the other hand, was his savior. Of course, Xia Shui didn't know Li Zhongjiu's identity. Academician. Ji Fu hurried to Chun Song's side and drew the Guanghan bow in her hand, aiming at the figure walking over from the river. Li Zhongjiu walked to the shore. Although Wang Ding was lying on the ground, he struggled to get up. When he heard the voice and the tone of the voice, Wang Ding already knew who was coming. Other than his young master, who else in the world could say such arrogant words in such a calm manner? Wang Ding immediately knelt in the direction of Li Zhongjiu without hesitation. Wang Ding, greetings. Greetings, my ass, get up. Get up. Li Zhongjiu directly raised his hand, and Wang Ding's legs involuntarily stood up. At the same time, a stream of energy flowed into his body, helping Wang Ding to heal his internal injuries. In just 2 breaths of time, Wang Ding's internal injuries were completely healed. Even the many internal injuries left behind from the battle, and the damage to the meridians caused by the breakthrough, were all completely healed at this moment. Everything was like a dream, even more surreal than a dream. It was his young master. Only his young master would have such a temper and such means. 2 years and only this level of cultivation. Shame. Li Zhongjiu said lightly. However, Wang Ding wasn't young after all. His cultivation was considered above average. Although Li Zhongjiu hadn't been around for many years, Wang Ding's loyalty hadn't changed. This was something that Li Zhongjiu appreciated and liked very much. It didn't matter if you were strong or talented. Anyway, you weren't as strong or talented as Li Zhongjiu. In that case, it was enough for you to understand what loyalty was. This way, Li Zhongjiu didn't have to waste time cleaning up the sect. You are. Xia Shui also got up from the ground at this moment. Wang Ding bowed to Li Zhongjiu. So how could the other party's identity be simple? Therefore, Xia Shui didn't dare to neglect. What's your name? Li Zhongjiu asked. I'm Xia Shui, a disciple of Tianzong Academy. Xia Shui secretly raised her head and glanced at Li Zhongjiu. It wasn't until Li Zhongjiu approached that Xia Shui saw Li Zhongjiu's appearance clearly. She was shocked and quickly lowered her head, not daring to raise it again. How could he be so young? Li Zhongjiu seemed to be in his early 20s. What was his identity? Xia Shui? You did well. When Wang Ding heard Li Zhongjiu praising Xia Shui, there was only envy in his eyes. Those who were praised by Li Zhongjiu were basically in heaven. This meant that they had a meteoric rise. It wasn't an exaggeration at all. After all, Li Zhongjiu had the strength to give you a meteoric rise. Although she didn't know who Li Zhongjiu was, it felt a little strange to be suddenly praised, especially by someone who looked the same age. This is the owner of White Deer Mansion, the real founder of Tianzong Academy, the protector of the nation. The title of Evil Lord was used in Jianghu. Moreover, when the name Evil Lord was mentioned in front of children, it seemed like a bad boy, so Wang Ding chose another title. Ah! Xia Shui was stunned. The owner behind Tianzong Academy had always been a legendary existence. In fact, the first batch of students was Tianzong Academy, who was recruiting under the name of Li Zongjio, the peak expert that everyone worshipped Evil Lord. At this moment, he was standing in front of her. The person in front of her was the legendary person. Xia Shui felt as if she was dreaming. All of this was so unreal. You are evil Lord. Xia Shui also signed up for Tianzong Academy because of her worship of Evil Lord. Otherwise, it would be difficult to recruit good students just by relying on the accumulation of such little resources. After all, the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor had a glorious history of over 100 years. How could it be better than a small Tianzong Academy, acting without justification? Only Evil Lord could be used. If it wasn't for the name of Evil Lord behind it, other people who hadn't heard of it would think that Tianzong Medicine Mansion was some random school. In fact, there were many people who swindled others. Jianghu was dangerous. Lord Evil Lord, you are so young, Xia Shui also said subconsciously. However, when she said it, she realized that she seemed to have offended Evil Lord and immediately apologized. However, Li Zongjie waved his hand. He turned to look at Chen Song, who was holding his broken arm and looking at him with a helpless expression. At this moment, Chen Song's heart and face were directly hit with a big question mark. Evil Lord. Chapter 1477. Kill yourself. Li Zongjie stood with his hands behind his back. He said calmly, "Kill myself." Before Chen Song could react, he heard Li Zongjie's commanding tone. He wanted Chen Song to kill himself. Didn't Li Zongjie ask around in the city? He had the chance to break through and become a supreme being. Aren't you, Evil Lord, a supreme being too? I'm only one step away from becoming a supreme being. Why do you want me, Chen Song, to kill myself? You really think too highly of yourself. Evil Lord Li Zongjie? You're just a villain with an undeserved reputation. You're a supreme being, and I'm no match for you. However, the power of my Azure Ocean Academy isn't something you can imagine. If you want me to kill myself, why don't you take a good look at yourself? Chen Song said coldly. Since Li Zongjie could be called the Evil Lord, he must have something unique. At the very least, he must be a supreme being. It was normal for him to be able to chop off one of his arms. After all, if he wanted to compare the cultivation of a supreme being, there was indeed a huge difference between heaven and earth. However, Li Zongjie couldn't be arrogant just because he was a supreme being. The Azure Ocean Academy behind him wasn't weak either. They had 3 supreme being experts. It was just that the Azure Ocean Academy didn't want to compete with them. After all, they were relatively low-key on the surface. Everyone was relatively low-key. When the time came, they would directly show their strength and truly amaze the world. That was the best plan. There was no need to show their trump card from the start. It was enough for them to know it. Otherwise, the Azure Ocean Academy wouldn't be so confident to directly establish a foundation in the Sacred Flame Royal City and start recruiting. If an ordinary person wanted to start from scratch, it would take a long time to succeed. However, the Azure Ocean Academy seemed to have succeeded easily. That was why it was misunderstood by the public. It was not an easy task to establish an academy. After all, you need enough heritage, enough connections, and enough stable teachers. Otherwise, it would only take a moment for your school to close down. The Azure Ocean Academy had the strength to do so. It was just that it had always been hidden. It seems that you are very confident. Li Zongjie immediately smiled. His opponent seemed to be very confident. Li Zongjie decided to defeat him in the area he was best at. At this moment, Wang Ding arrived in front of Li Zongjie. This was because Wang Ding didn't know how much Li Zongjie knew about the Azure Ocean Institute. After all, Li Zongjie seemed to have just returned. Moreover, he seemed to have been in seclusion all this time. Wang Ding guessed that Li Zongjie only appeared because of the abyssal race. Young master, the Azure Ocean Academy isn't simple. Headmaster Lan Yuan has said that we must not clash with them head-on. We should stop before going too far. If we can't clean up the mess in the future, it will be troublesome. Wang Ding also told him everything he knew. As for whether Li Zongjie would listen or not, it was not up to Wang Ding to say. Good, that's the best. If I let him die so casually, he won't be satisfied. I'm a person of principle and a kind heart. If you want to die, I will definitely let you die knowing why. Li Zongjie said with a smile. Xia Shui listened to the evil lord's words from the side. She had a strange feeling in her heart. This evil lord senior, are you humble or not? No matter how she listened to it, there was a strange feeling. She couldn't figure it out. This was Xia Shui's thought. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two figures broke through the air. They landed in front of Chen Song. They glanced at Li Zongjie in front of them, and then looked at the severed arm on the ground. The two of them looked at each other, with a trace of embarrassment in their eyes. They didn't expect to meet such a troublesome person today. Deputy Deans, you have to seek justice for me. This Li Zongjie bullied the weak, and tried to assassinate my son. Chen Song hurriedly complained when he saw the two deputy deans arrive. At the same time, he looked at Li Zongjie with a provocative gaze. The viciousness in his eyes made it seem as if he couldn't wait to twist Li Zongjie's head off in the next second. So what if Li Zongjie is strong? They have two supreme being experts on their side. Why would they be afraid of you? Even if Li Zongjie could survive today, the people under him would be sent to their deaths in vain. I'm Yu Manzhou from the Azure Ocean Academy. Lu Wanfei. Greetings to Senior Evil Lord. The two people who came were the famous deputy deans of the Azure Ocean Academy. It was said that the two of them were extremely mysterious. It was difficult for ordinary people to meet them. Moreover, one of them was an expert in alchemy, while the other was an expert in refining weapons. Both of them were top-notch craftsmen in the Azure Ocean Academy. Therefore, the appearance of any one of them could be said to be of great importance. Li Zongjie didn't expect them to appear at the same time today. Moreover, both of them appeared before him. However, it was obvious that even the two of them didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of Li Zongjie. Chen Song was completely dumbfounded by this series of greetings. What's going on? Could it be that the Azure Ocean Academy was afraid of the White Deer Mansion? The fight hadn't even started yet, but they had already admitted defeat. Chen Song, there must be some misunderstanding. Apologize to Senior Evil Lord, Lu Wanfei said. Lu Wanfei was wearing a cauldron robe. He was a true expert in refining weapons. As soon as he said that, not only Chen Song, but even his disciple Jifu was shocked. How could this be? One must know that the two people in front of them were the two deputy deans whom they admired and respected greatly. In their hearts, there were only a handful of people who could match the two deputy deans in the world. It was precisely because it was difficult to find opponents that they took up positions in the Azure Ocean Academy. Firstly, it was too boring, so they could find something to do. Secondly, they could only find opponents who were on par with them in this top academy. Otherwise, they would have been free and unfettered. But now these two indomitable figures actually wanted academician Chen Song, who was injured and suffered losses, to apologize to them. Deputy Deans, this person secretly killed senior brother Chen Feng. Jifu couldn't help but say, under such circumstances, if he still had to apologize to the enemy who killed his son, wouldn't he never be able to raise his head in front of others? How deep would such hatred be? They didn't understand why the two deputy deans were here today. Could it be that this Li Zongjie in front of them was really that terrifying? Shut up. You said that Senior Evil Lord killed Chen Feng. Do you have proof? Moreover, Senior Evil Lord is a top figure in the cultivation world. How could he deal with a disciple of an ordinary academy? There must be a misunderstanding. Yu Manzhou said sternly. There was the smell of pills and herbs on his body. He was an alchemist. It didn't matter what level of alchemist he was. Anyway, he couldn't be better than Li Zongjie. Jifu was frightened by the latter's stern tone. She had never seen such a side of the deputy deans. Because Jifu was also one of the top 10 geniuses of the Azure Ocean Academy, and had made a name for herself, She often came into contact with the two deputy deans. She was usually amiable, but at this moment, she was in a tense state, as if she was facing a great enemy. Anyone who saw it would feel extremely stifled. Chen Song quickly apologized to Senior Evil Lord. Yu Manzhou reminded. Chen Song's face was filled with unwillingness. My son was killed by Li Zongjio. Now, I actually have to apologize to Li Zongjio. This is simply a great humiliation. However, the two deputy deans had already said so. How could Chen Song resist? Even if he didn't want to apologize, he still had to apologize. Otherwise, the Azure Ocean Academy would directly give up on him, and no one would be able to stand up for him. After today, when he recovered from his injuries, he would definitely teach this Li Zongjio a lesson. I'm sorry, Senior Evil Lord. I was reckless and wronged Senior Evil Lord. Chen Song was extremely unwilling. His son was killed, and his arm was chopped off. Whether it could be reattached was another matter. Now blood was still flowing nonstop. Hearing this, Chen Song actually apologized. Although his face was filled with unwillingness, this was already considered a statement. Xia Shui's eyes were filled with disbelief. Just a moment ago, he wanted to fight to the death. In the blink of an eye, he actually apologized in front of Li Zongjio. Although he was unwilling, at least he apologized. As for Evil Lord Li Zongjio, he didn't say a word from the beginning to the end. It was all said by the other party. Amazing, really amazing. As expected of the man behind the Sky Sect Academy. Just thinking about this made Xia Shui feel a sense of pride. Usually these people were more arrogant than the other. The Azure Ocean Academy seemed to completely disdain to compete with them, and never put the Sky Sect Academy in their eyes. This kind of arrogant attitude made Xia Shui very dissatisfied. Today, there was finally someone to teach them a lesson. Just thinking about it made her feel secretly happy. Since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, we will leave first and not disturb everyone's rest, Lu Wanfei said. Lu Wanfei said, now is a good time to slip away. If he continued to stay here, there was no telling what kind of trouble would happen. What the hell? They actually encountered Li Zongjio, this malefic star. It would have been good even if they were facing the great demon king. Unfortunately, they met Li Zongjio. Either he commits suicide, or you all die in my hands. Choose for yourself. Li Zongjio said. This sentence shocked everyone. Chapter 1478. The other party had already taken a step back and had apologized. I've already given you enough face by apologizing to you, even though I'm at a disadvantage. However, Li Zongjio didn't seem to be satisfied. This was the so-called ruthlessness. Xia Shui was stunned by Li Zongjio's actions. Wang Ding, on the other hand, was extremely calm. Wasn't this expected? Did you really think that Evil Lord's words were spoken casually? What a joke. Since Li Zongjio said that the brat had to die today, then Chen Song wouldn't live to see tomorrow morning. The sooner the suicide was over, the sooner they could go back to rest. After all, they couldn't avoid it. Xia Shui didn't expect Li Zongjio to be so serious. Yu Manzhou and Lu Wanfei looked at each other. They could even see the cold sweat on each other's forehead. Senior Evil Lord, it's Chen Song's fault for offending you. I'll apologize on your behalf. Do you think you can give Prefect Song Hung some face? Yu Manzhou said. Prefect Song Hung, even the prefect of the Azure Ocean Institute, was an extremely mysterious figure, with an unfathomable cultivation base. The two of them definitely didn't have the strength to contend with Li Zongjio. Didn't you hear that Li Zongjio fought a group of dragons in the Tianyan dynasty? Did you think this was a joke? Did you think you were writing a novel? If Prefect Song Hung was here, they wouldn't be in such a passive situation. But now that Prefecture head Song Hung had left to travel the world, who knew where he was enjoying himself? Only the two of them were left to face Li Zongjio, this terrifying existence. Right now, they could only hope that Li Zongjio would give Prefect Song Hung some face. Perhaps Prefect Song Hung knew Li Zongjio when he was traveling. Announcing his name was obviously very important at this moment. Prefect Song Hung? Li Zongjio frowned. When the two saw Li Zongjio's attitude, they thought that there was hope. However, Li Zongjio quickly shook his head. Never heard of it. Don't waste any more time. Those who touch the people of Tianzong Academy must die. Li Zhongjie said firmly. His tone was so firm. At this moment, Xia Shui believed that it was definitely not Li Zhongjie who had plotted against Chen Feng. It was only when she saw that Chen Song wanted to vent his anger on her that she made a move. How could a person with such a personality be a sneaky villain? Furthermore, the evil dominator had no enmity with that Chen Feng. Why would he need to personally take action to kill Chen Feng? What a joke. It was obvious that Chen Feng was not strong enough, and the quality of the protective jade pendant was not good. That was why he had died at the hands of the Blade clan of the Abyss clan. Li Zhongjie had only chosen to protect her and the people of Tianzong Academy from the beginning to the end. She was protected by a powerful force like Li Zhongjie. Xia Shui's heart was indescribably touched. Although she had almost lost her life, she was still alive. Originally, she should have turned a big problem into a small one, and a small one into nothing. However, Evil Lord obviously did not want to do so. If he did so, Tianzong Academy would no longer be strong. Tianzong Academy was definitely a strong force now. When Xia Shui saw Li Zhongjie, her eyes were almost sparkling. Lu Wanfei and Li Zhongjie looked at each other again. Obviously, it was hard to make a decision. Could it be that they would really kill Chen Song just because of Li Zhongjie's words? At this moment, Chen Song also deeply understood that evil Lord Li Zhongjie seemed to be more terrifying than the rumors. More terrifying than he had imagined. Otherwise, facing Li Zhongjie's pressure step by step, why would the two deputy deans have to make concessions like this? They would have slapped each other, and both sides would have directly fought. As long as there was a slight possibility, there was no need to be so humble. In any case, they were two supreme experts. However, in front of Li Zhongjie, they had no temper at all. Just this point alone was enough for the latter to figure out what was going on. In the end, Lu Wanfei made up his mind. Suddenly, he pressed his hand on Chen Song's left arm. This was also Chen Song's last arm. Bang! Chen Song's last arm was directly blown off on the spot. Just like that, it was directly blown up without any foreshadowing at all. At the same time, Chen Song's own yuan energy was completely sealed. Therefore, there was no way to cover up the pain of losing his arm. It was directly displayed to his heart's content. Chen Song directly knelt on the ground and pressed his head against the floor. Since he started cultivating, he had been in countless battles and injuries were nothing out of the ordinary. However, today both of his arms were directly broken. This was the first time in his life that he had experienced such pain. When Chen Song knelt on the ground, this feeling of pain was deeply engraved in Jifu's mind. Jifu was scared silly today. The things that happened in front of her were simply as miraculous as a dream. She had never heard of such a thing happening before. Why did this kind of thing happen to her? Jifu could not believe her eyes. Looking at everything in front of her, Jifu's heart was already filled with regret. If she had known this would happen, she would not have revealed her discovery. It was all her fault that academician Chen Song had to suffer such torture. Lu Wanfei was also thinking of ways to save Chen Song's life. Perhaps after breaking the latter's arms, Li Zhongjie's mood would be slightly better. After that, keeping his life was more important than anything else. May I ask if Senior Evil Lord is satisfied now? Yu Manzhou said expressionlessly. In fact, at this time, Yu Manzhou's heart was already filled with resentment. Just because Evil Lord was powerful, did he think that he could wantonly bully others? Even if he could bully others, it did not mean that he could continue to be arrogant forever. Xia Shui looked at the miserable Chen Song and felt a little sorry for him. After all, Chen Song was an academician with a bright future. Now that both of his arms were broken, it would be difficult for him to recover his cultivation. He would probably be a cripple for the rest of his life. For a cultivator, this might really be the biggest punishment for him. However, Li Zhongjie still shook his head. Don't you have ears? Li Zhongjie said indifferently. He looked at Yu Manzhou. Are my words so difficult to understand? Do you have to force me to do it myself? Li Zhongjie. When Yu Manzhou heard that Li Zhongjie was still unwilling to give up, he immediately roared and took a step forward. He glared at the person in front of him and clenched his fists tightly. However, he did not dare to explode. At this moment, there was already a large group of experts rushing over from the sky. Whoosh! They were all experts from the White Deer Mansion. Lan Yiyan was also among them. It was obvious that the two groups of people had gathered. Lan Yiyan was also a member of the White Deer Mansion. Although it was not publicly announced, everyone knew the relationship between the White Deer Mansion and Tianzong Academy. Li Zhongjie. Lan Yiyan was pleasantly surprised when she saw Li Zhongjie. However, Li Zhongjie only nodded at Lan Yiyan. Seeing that there were so many people from the other side, if he did not act, it would be difficult to end the situation. If this dragged on, it would be even more embarrassing. Chen Song, don't blame us for this, Yu Manzhou said in a deep voice. After whispering to the injured Chen Song, he directly smashed Chen Song's internal organs into pieces with a single palm. Bang! He was a teacher, but when he attacked he was quite ruthless. Senior Evil Lord, we will meet again, Yu Manzhou said to Li Zhongjie with his fists clasped. From the looks of it, it seemed that they were still looking for an opportunity to take revenge. Li Zhongjie was waiting for them to take their revenge. I'm just afraid that they would run away halfway. Let's go. Yu Manzhou left the two corpses behind and immediately leaped away. Xia Shui stared blankly at the two corpses on the ground. For some reason, Xia Shui even had an illusion that the two people in front of her didn't need to die. But for some reason, they had to kill them. It was as if they were conducting a lesson. Who would use killing to teach others? Thinking of this, Xia Shui couldn't help but shiver. She shook her head, not letting her imagination run wild. Tonight, she was supposed to help Wang Ding kill the Abyss tribe. But she didn't expect to offend the people from the Azure Ocean Academy. Now there wouldn't be any good relations between the two great academies. They would probably be at each other's throats. If they met in the future, it would definitely be an irreconcilable feud. However, Xia Shui wasn't afraid of them. By the time you came, Xia Shui was already dead. Do you think you can let your guard down in the Sacred Flame Imperial City? Li Zhongjie glanced at the guests of the White Deer Mansion in front of him. After such a thing happened, they actually waited for others to inform them. It was simply embarrassing. How dare they say that this was their territory? We are ashamed. After hearing this, the guests of the White Deer Mansion were ashamed. After all, the treatment given by the White Deer Mansion could be said to be quite good. However, it was hard to say. After all, Chen Song followed them all the way here because he was worried about Chen Feng's safety. If not for Li Zhongjie coincidentally being here, tonight's incident might not have happened. This was because Li Zhongjie gave Xia Shui a very realistic on-the-spot lesson. Of course, Li Zhongjie wouldn't say it out loud. He wanted Xia Shui to comprehend it herself. On the battlefield, life and death could be decided with a single thought. There couldn't be any mercy. Also, she had to clearly understand what death was. Chapter 1479. Li Zhongjie wouldn't hold it against them. After all, there were many people in Tianzong Academy now. It was normal for them to encounter some danger when they were outside. However, after something happened, they had to get back at them. Only in this way would others not dare to be arrogant and act recklessly when they announced their names in the future. Li Zhongjie's move tonight was to intimidate the people of the Azure Ocean Academy. A mere prefecture master Song Hung dared to challenge Li Zhongjie in the Sacred Flame Imperial City. He was very interested in who this prefecture master Song Hung was. Tai-Fi, go and investigate the background of this prefecture master Song Hung. Yes, young master, Tai-Fi replied, trembling with fear. Tonight could be said to be a soul-stirring process. In fact, the speed at which the experts of the White Deer residence arrived could be said to be quite fast. After all, they had sent their junior brothers and sisters to inform them. If they hadn't been intercepted by the intelligence personnel of the White Deer Mansion, their speed would have been even slower. In addition, Wang Ding of the city guards was overseeing this place. He didn't expect the other party to really make a move. Wang Ding was greatly affected. They actually dared to not put him, the commander of the city guards of the Sacred Flame Imperial City, in their eyes. He had to let these guys have a good look. He had to see how powerful they were. In the future, the Azure Ocean Academy would be in big trouble. Wang Ding, remember to follow the traces of the Abyss clan closely. This is only a small portion of them, and they haven't died out yet. You have to find them as soon as possible. Otherwise, their speed of evolution will be very fast. Dean Lan, you should also cooperate. It's a good opportunity for the disciples of the Sky Sect Academy to test their skills and show their faces. Li Zongjie said. Although Lan Yuyan wanted to say that the children of the Sky Sect Academy weren't ready, she thought about it again. This was the only way to nurture true warriors. Nothing would happen only when you were fully prepared. Alright, Li Zongjie liked to do things in a clean and efficient manner, but he couldn't be considered to be swift and decisive. After all, these were all very simple and conventional operations. Although his men had made a mistake, Li Zongjie did not punish them. After all, they were all his own people. It didn't matter if they made a mistake, as long as they didn't cause any serious consequences. Li Zongjie also let these things go. There was nothing to be calculative about. The matter of the Wishing River was quickly sealed off. He was not allowed to leak any information about this place. Otherwise, it would also cause panic. Wang Ding was also familiar with how things would proceed from there. This Wishing River should have come from the moat. Since the Abyssal tribe had moved, they might have already arrived near the moat. The reproduction rate of the Abyssal tribe was terrifying. The Abyssal tribe that they encountered just now were just ordinary and low-level members of the Abyssal tribe. The matter of investigating the origin of the Abyssal tribe was naturally left to Taifai and the others. Li Zongjie also returned to the White Deer Mansion. He began to concentrate on his cultivation. He closed the door and did not go out. The feud between the Sky Sect Academy and the Azure Ocean Academy in the White Deer Mansion was soon spread. No one dared to believe that the two great academies would become enemies just like that. It was like playing house. Azure Ocean Academy. A group of experts gathered. Everyone present was at the academician level. There was even an old academician among them. This old academician looked somewhat similar to Chen Song and his son. He was Chen Song's father, Chen Zhudao. His name was Exorcism. Chen Zhudao was originally a hidden old academician in the Azure Ocean Academy. He had already retired to Tianyuan and was concentrating on his cultivation in the Azure Ocean Academy. He had cultivated his son, Chen Song. Chen Zhudao was confident that under his leadership, Chen Song would be able to step into the supremacy realm within the next 50 years. By then, the Azure Ocean Academy would have a total of 5 supremacy realm experts. Even the White Deer Mansion didn't have such a lineup. However, such a good hand of cards had been destroyed. That's how it is. Old Chen. This Li Zongjie isn't someone to be trifled with. If you're not careful, you'll lose everything. This person is like a mad demon. The Academy Master has also said that we must not have a direct confrontation with Li Zongjie until he finds a way to deal with Li Zongjie. Vice Dean Lu Wanfei said. However, Chen Zhudao obviously didn't listen to him. He had only come here today to find out the whole story of what had happened. You're Jifu. Chen Zhudao's drooping eyelids slowly opened. He then looked at the only person who had witnessed everything, Jifu. He didn't want to listen to anyone else. He only wanted to listen to the girl in front of him. Jifu felt her body stiffen when Chen Zhudao stared at her. She couldn't move at all. She nodded involuntarily. It seemed that Jifu couldn't lie in front of this power. Jifu didn't know that Chen Feng had a grandfather. Moreover, this grandfather seemed to be more powerful than the 2 vice deans. Just this morning, a meeting was suddenly called. Jifu was also invited. After all, Jifu was an extremely important witness at the scene. Let me borrow your memory for a moment. After saying that, Chen Zhudao's eyes suddenly emitted a ray of light. Boom! Jifu felt as if her mind had been set ablaze by a brilliant flame. Then, the scene that she saw that night flashed past her eyes like a frozen animation. Jifu felt as if her heart had been completely explored. Chen Zhudao wasn't interested in other things about Jifu. However, he didn't let go of any details about what happened last night. After a while, the ray of light disappeared. Then, Jifu's body went limp, and she collapsed on the chair. She didn't have any strength left. It was as if she had just had a nightmare. Someone directly split her head open and took out all the memories in the depths of her mind. If she were to experience this again, Ji-fu felt that she would go crazy. Even their eyes were filled with horror and fear as they looked at Chen Judao. She didn't dare to speak and curled up at the side. "Take her down," Yu Manzhou said. He thought that the female academician also went to take Ji-fu away. The latter needed to be calm and recuperated in her current state. However, the memory that Chen Jitao had obtained directly displayed it to him. It was placed in front of everyone. Suddenly, Chen Judao pointed to a spot in one of the light shadows. There was a dark power in the corner. This was a kind of shielding power. If one's cultivation wasn't high enough, there was no way to sense this place. Therefore, one would automatically ignore it. However, it didn't mean that he wasn't here. That kid was by the river the whole night. Chen Judao pointed to a spot. The aura within was exactly the same as Li Zongjio's aura. When everyone heard this, they took a deep breath. It turned out that what Ji-fu said was true. If it wasn't for Li Zongjio's secret intervention, Chen Feng wouldn't have died so easily. Damn it! Yu Manzhou slammed the table. So what if we know? Before the schoolmaster returns, we can't act rashly. Chen Judao glanced at Yu Manzhou. His aged eyes were also filled with deterrence. Just a faint glance was enough to give people a feeling that it could pierce through their hearts. I'll handle this myself. From now on, I, Chen Judao, have nothing to do with the Azure Sea Academy. Everything I do is for my own movie theater. It has nothing to do with the Azure Sea Academy. The one who suffered the most was not Chen Song. It was him, Chen Judao. After so many years of careful nurturing, he didn't expect to be destroyed by Li Zongjio overnight. Such a blood feud wasn't something that he could give up so easily. Even if he died, he would drag a few people from the Li family down with him. He would leave now and head to the Sunset City. Don't you, Li Zongjio, love to kill and annihilate families? Today I, Chen Judao, will let you have a taste of it. Didn't you painstakingly plan for such a long time for the sake of the Li family? Today, I'll let you see how you feel when all your hard work turns into ashes. Courtesy demands reciprocity. What you gave me, I'll repay you tenfold. Chen Judao didn't need to calm down. He took a step forward. He left the Azure Sea Academy. If he wanted to leave, no one in the Azure Ocean Academy would be able to stop him. Let him go. If we don't do this, it will become one of his inner demons sooner or later. Lu Wanfei saw Chen Judao rushing out. Firstly, they did stop him. But Chen Judao's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. He had no way to break through his shackles. Therefore, if he released his inner demons as he wished, there might be unexpected results. Chen Judao's figure quickly flew across the sky. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the sky above the sacred flame imperial city. On the roof of the White Deer Mansion, Li Zongjio said as he watched Chen Judao leave. How could he not know what these people were thinking? Qing Shilong, you go. Don't take action unless it's necessary. Go. Li Zongjio said. Qing Shilong, who was behind him, immediately showed himself. Yes, sir. Whoosh. Qing Shilong's figure also flashed and merged into the void in front of him. His figure also disappeared. Li Zongjio could have killed Chen Judao, but Chen Judao didn't dare to do so. But he also wanted to see how powerful the Sunset City was. With Qing Shilong, there wouldn't be any problem. Chapter 1480. He slowly looked in the direction of the Azure Ocean Academy. These people were really bold. They actually dared to attack the Wuxia city. It seemed that he had to find a chance to tell the world about it. What would happen if they attacked the Wuxia city? However, there were many smart people in this world. Most of them knew that offending Wuxia city was the same as offending Li Zongjio. They might even offend more people. So they didn't dare to offend Wuxia city. However, there were also people who weren't afraid of death and were willing to stake everything. For example, Chen Judao in front of him. He knew clearly in his heart that if he were to face Li Zongjio, he would be killed in an instant. The only way was to go to the Wuxia city and capture a few important figures of the Li family. Then, Li Zongjio would definitely be terrified. At that time, he would naturally kneel down and beg for mercy. Although he might still die in the end, Chen Zhudao was at least confident that he could take a few people with him before he died. With the speed of a Supreme Realm expert, after 10 hours of flying, he had already arrived in the sky above the Wuxia city. Looking at Wuxia city from afar, it was indeed like a paradise on earth, a paradise. Looking at it made one feel relaxed and happy. However, Chen Zhudao came this time. He was here to kill. The more picturesque a fairyland was, the happier Chen Zhudao would be when he destroyed it. Immediately, Chen Zhudao approached the Wuxia city. Just in the sky above the Wuxia city, he shouted angrily, "Who is Li Zongjiu's father? Get out here! Get out here!" With an angry shout, wind and thunder filled the sky. The entire sky above the Wuxia city seemed to have changed color. The people in the Wuxia city looked up at the sky. Who had come to die? It was the first time in many years that they saw someone coming to die so blatantly. As for Li Tianqing, he was currently considering having a second child with Chen Shi. After all, he had made a breakthrough in his cultivation. Apart from cultivating every day, there was almost nothing to do. He didn't need to worry about the Li family's affairs for a long time. No matter how it developed, it would be full of vitality and wealth. Moreover, the Li family didn't lack money at all. In fact, most of the money was used to do good deeds and save the world. Don't you think he's very free? The sky-blazed lion suddenly raised its head. A pair of ferocious eyes stared at the sky. Li Tianqing's face was full of displeasure when he was interrupted. He believed that anyone would feel the same way. So Li Tianqing summoned his battle armor. Stepping on the sky-blaze royal lion, he rushed into the sky. Some of the Yuan kings and Yuan emperors hidden in the city appeared beside Li Tianqing. After all, the White Deer Mansion would definitely send someone to protect Li Tianqing. Nangong Wuji was also among them. Last night, Nangong Wuji was quickly transferred over. After Xiao Zhao found out about this, he did not hesitate to transfer most of the forces in White Deer Mansion over. I knew this old thing wouldn't give up. Behind Nangong Wuji were more than 10 origin emperors. However, the strength of the other party seemed to be stronger than expected. Chen Zhudao was also stunned for a moment. He had only roared once, and it had actually caused so many experts to come out of their hiding place. The small Wuxia city had so many crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Who's there? Li Tianqing took the lead with a lion. His aura was like that of the golden armored war god of the heavenly court. Of course, he wouldn't show any mercy to the people who came to challenge him. The other party obviously didn't come with good intentions. As long as it was an enemy, he would be responsible for flattening it. Nangong Wuji and the others also followed behind Li Tianqing. There were at least 100 experts gathered in this dark mass. Li Tianqing took a look at the lineup behind him and was shocked by what he saw. How could there be so many people? It was much more than he expected. Aren't you old Zhang who sells youtiao? Li Tianqing saw an old man in coarse linen clothes who could fly in the air. He was obviously an Yuan emperor expert. Old Zhang immediately smiled. We are here to protect the family head under orders. Obviously, they felt Chen Zhudao's strength, so these experts who were hiding in the dark also showed up one after another. Fuck. Then why are you selling your youtiao to me at such an expensive price? Hee. I'm just earning some pocket money. Li Tianqing was speechless. Of all the things an primitive emperor could do, why did you have to sell deep-fried dough sticks? No wonder the deep-fried dough sticks were so delicious that he couldn't stop eating them. How could the deep-fried dough sticks fried by an primitive emperor be simple? Li Tianqing didn't comment too much on this. Not only were there people selling youtiao, but there were also people selling fish in the East Market and soy sauce in the West Market. There were simply all kinds of people. What kind of world was this? Since when were there so many origin emperors? In fact, there weren't many of them. However, with the support of the White Deer Mansion, these people's cultivation speed had a great breakthrough. Because breaking into the origin emperor realm was a very simple matter. For the White Deer Mansion, it was easy to create a few origin emperors. However, no matter how many origin emperors there were, they were just cannon fodder. Chen Zhudao glanced at the hundreds of experts who had gathered indifferently. They couldn't withstand a single blow. The one who was slightly threatening was the sky-blaze lion that Li Tianqing was sitting on. Only the sky-blazed lion could make Chen Judao feel a little troubled. After all, it was a primordial beast of the sovereign realm. Moreover, the sky-blazed lion had a strong bloodline. It wouldn't be so polite to you. Once it started fighting, it would be extremely fierce. Anyone else? Chen Judao said indifferently. In front of him was a motley crew. Sure enough, Li Zongjiu had miscalculated. The name of evil lord seemed to be a bluff. How powerful was he? Anyway, these people in front of him had to die today. He was determined to kill them all. Just as Chen Judao finished his words and was about to take action, suddenly, there was a loud and clear cry in the sky above the clouds. 3 black shadows lined up in a triangular formation and appeared in front of Chen Judao. In fact, the 3 of them were already in the sky. However, Chen Judao didn't see them. That was why the Wind Thunder Condor opened its mouth to remind him that there were still people up there and that he shouldn't be too anxious. When Chen Judao saw the 3 Wind Thunder Condors in the sky, he immediately felt as if his heart had been kicked hard by someone. Wind Thunder Condor. Not only the Wind Thunder Condor, but there were also 3 figures behind the Wind Thunder Condor. Chen Judao could feel a ferocious power from the 3 of them. It was a kind of suppression that came from the pinnacle of the world. This kind of suffocation. To Chen Judao, it was extremely shocking, because he had only felt this kind of feeling from one person before. Honorables. Chen Judao's body started to tremble. Honorables of the sovereign realm. A single honorable realm expert was enough to kill 10 peak supreme beings. This was the terrifying power of an honorable. If it was an absolute saint, one wouldn't even be able to touch their hair and would be turned into ashes. 3 honorables. At this moment, Chen Judao felt as if he was in front of the gates of hell. The people in front of him were waiting to judge him. Run! This was the only thought in Chen Judao's mind. He thought that Wuxia city was defenseless. Even if there were some reserves, it couldn't be too strong. However, when Chen Judao saw the 3 honorables in front of him, he knew that it was too late. It was completely too late. If he didn't leave now, he wouldn't be able to. Why was he so impulsive? Life was so beautiful. Why didn't he live well? Why did he have to die like this? Immediately, Chen Judao's body swayed. Boom! However, Chen Judao only dashed out for about 10 meters before he hit an invisible wall with a bang. Then, Chen Judao couldn't help but retreat. He found that he was trapped by the other party. Who are you? Who sent you here? Li Tianqing moved closer to Chen Judao. At this moment, Li Tianqing was right in front of Chen Judao. However, Chen Judao didn't have any power to attack Li Tianqing. The 3 honorables were watching from the sky. They stared at the situation below. It was impossible for them to make a move. Your son killed my whole family, Chen Judao shouted in a low voice. At this moment, the power in his body was vibrating. However, he still couldn't break the imprisonment. It was futile. My son killed your whole family? When Li Tianqing heard that the other party had come to seek revenge, he basically understood what was going on. Only Li Zongjiu would cause trouble outside. Li Tianqing stayed in the Wuxia city and didn't do anything. So how could he have an enemy? Even if he did have enemies, they would have gone into hiding. How could they appear in front of Li Tianqing and send themselves to death? Now, who didn't know the terrifying strength of Wuxia city? Why did they have to come here and use their lives to verify it? You're lying, Li Tianqing suddenly said seriously. Chen Judao was shocked. He didn't understand what Li Tianqing meant. If my son killed your whole family, why didn't you die? Li Tianqing's eyes were filled with cold light. Li Zongjiu must have a reason to kill. Li Tianqing believed in his son. If he didn't believe in his son, would he believe in a dead man? In the next moment, Li Tianqing hit Chen Judao with his palm. You! Chen Judao didn't expect that Li Tianqing and Li Zongjiu were jackals of the same tribe. Now Li Tianqing wanted to get rid of this trouble and clean up Li Zongjiu's mess. However, when he was about to attack, it was a wave of power that came from afar. Buzz! It wrapped around Chen Judao and quickly retreated. Chapter 1481. Chen Zidao's body was instantly pulled back. The three elders of Sparrow Divine Palace in the sky immediately understood that there was an expert in the dark. Immediately, three streams of energy swept out in an attempt to grab Chen Zhudao back. At the same time, the Wind Thunder Condor also released a wave of energy. Boom! It blasted towards the space in front of them. However, their attacks were unable to hit the opponent. Finally, at this moment, a beam of green light appeared and slammed into the void. Amidst the formless void, a figure exclaimed in surprise. Then, without taking a step back, he slowly appeared. Beside Chen Zidao, there was an elder in a black robe. There was an invisible flying fish sitting on the elder in a black robe. No wonder he could take Chen Zidao away in the dark. The invisible flying fish was a special meta beast. It could fly in the sky and dive into the sea. It could also hide underground. Although it looked like a fish, it had a pair of wings. Not only that, it also had a pair of sharp claws under its abdomen. It was this unique structure that allowed the latter to possess so many skills. Swoosh! Qing Shilong appeared. When the three elders of Sparrow Divine Palace saw the appearance of Qing Shilong, a trace of surprise flashed across their eyes. It seemed that Li Zongjio had a plan. He would not let the person in front of them ruin it. Naturally, he was paying attention to every movement in Wuxia City. Haha, I am Song Hung. Can you give me some face and let this matter drop? After I return, I will definitely let him go into seclusion to reflect on his mistakes. He will definitely not come and pose a threat to Wuxia City. A black-robed elder with a white hat on his head appeared. He was skinny and had the demeanor of an immortal. His beard was actually 1/2 meter long. Just this white beard alone would require him to spend a lot of time taking care of it every day. Song Hung, the real schoolmaster of Azure Ocean Academy, a mysterious expert who had been wandering around the world all year round. Now he had actually come to Wuxia City specifically for Chen Zidao. Evidently, Song Hung was a rather loyal person. After knowing that Chen Zhudao had come, he was worried and decided to follow him. Originally, Song Hung wanted Chen Zhudao to kill a few people. As long as Chen Zhudao did not harm the core members of the Li family, everything could be salvaged. With his identity, when the time came to deal with Li Zongjio, there was still room for negotiation. However, when Song Hung arrived, he realized how terrifying Wuxia City was. There were so many experts. Even the experts of Sparrow Divine Palace from the Eldritch Land had appeared here. If Chen Zhudao were to continue like this, he would only end up being killed. There were no surprises at all. No matter what, he was still a hero of the Azure Ocean Academy, an old friend of many years. How could Song Hung watch as Chen Zhudao perished here? Therefore, he directly took action to bring him out. Who would have thought that a colossal dragon tribe elite, who was comparable to a supreme sage, would appear along the way? Damn it! Just how much power did Li Zongjio have under his command? Song Hung naturally did not know. He had paid attention to Li Zongjio before. In fact, Li Zongjio did not have much strength. Black Canal Basilica and the like were just a bunch of supremes who wanted to entertain themselves. It was not a big deal for Li Zongjio to settle it. Song Hung could have easily settled it if he had taken action. However, this kind of thing had nothing to do with him. There was no need for him to take action. Later, Li Zongjio went into seclusion. Song Hung also wandered around and began his own training. He did not continue to pay attention to Li Zongjio. At best, Li Zongjio was just a genius. If he wanted to grow, he would need at least 100 years. Therefore, his attention was not on Li Zongjio. Something like this had happened in the Azure Ocean Academy. Yu Manzhou and the others naturally sent a message to Song Hung. As for whether Song Hung could receive it, it was really up to fate. However, he coincidentally received it. Fortunately, he came in time. Otherwise, this person would have been killed by these people. He did not expect that the son would be unreasonable. As the father, he was even more unreasonable. He even said that he would make up for the missing one after killing the whole family. If the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked too. Song Hung originally wanted to save Chen Zhudao secretly. He would deal with the rest later. After all, he had to clarify the situation first. The three supremes of the Sparrow Divine Palace were here. This meant that the situation was not simple. He was able to kill the 3 supremes of the Sparrow Divine Palace, but he might not be able to deal with the people behind. For example, the experts of the colossal dragon tribe who came out. Qing Shilong was comparable to an expert of the absolute saint realm. Moreover, when he transformed into his true form, it would be quite difficult to deal with him if he wanted to fight with the other party. Master, you're finally back. You must seek justice for me. When Chen Zhudao saw that it was Song Hung who came to save him, he was instantly excited. He was finally saved. The people of the Li family were simply too much. They bullied others by relying on their strength and numbers. Now, even his own prefecture lord had appeared. His backer had also arrived. He wanted to see how arrogant these people could be. The first person Chen Zhudao wanted to kill was Li Tianqing. Look at what Li Tianqing said just now. How could he use such an excuse to absolve his son? Your son is your son. But isn't my son also a son? Therefore, Chen Zhudao was extremely angry. Step back, Song Hung said. Song Hung said. The other party had many experts, especially a dragon race expert, 3 wind thunder godly eagles, and 3 elders. There were a total of 6 venerable ones. If they really fought, how would they have the time to take care of Chen Zhudao? In fact, Chen Zhudao was only a second-grade sovereign. Yet he had the guts to do such a thing. If he didn't show up today, Chen Zhudao would only end up being killed by Yi Shiwen. Song Hung didn't have to save him. Why didn't you check the situation of the other party before you attacked? How could you just rush over like that? Did you really think that you could run amok in this world, just because you had the cultivation of a supreme? Of course, you could run amok in other places. But not here. This was a rare place where you couldn't run amok. Moreover, it was fucking occupied by you. Don't you think you owe me? Chen Zhudao also knew that the current situation seemed to be a little wrong. He immediately stepped back and stood behind Song Hung. He almost lost his life just now. He didn't want to do it again. Otherwise, he didn't know who would come to save him. Song Hung? I've heard of your name. Your Azure Sea Academy is doing well. Li Tianqing appeared and said. Although there were many experts, he was the master of this place. Qing Shilong came to the front of Li Tianqing obediently. Firstly, it was to let Li Tianqing talk to the other party. Secondly, it was convenient for him to block if the other party attacked Li Tianqing. The distance was just right. The 3 elders of Sparrow God Palace were also watching from the side, to prevent the 2 in front of them from escaping again. After all, Li Tianqing didn't say that they could leave. As long as he didn't say so, they couldn't let him go. They had to listen to Li Tianqing's command. If they weren't skilled, they wouldn't be able to control the situation. Family Headley, you flatter me. Mansion Master Song Hung said. I won't make things difficult for you. Hand him over and leave now. This matter with you ends here. We can still drink tea and chat often in the future. But if you insist on taking him away, then when my son brings people to exterminate your entire family in the future, even I won't be able to stop him. Think about it carefully. Li Tianqing waved his hand and said. It seemed that he didn't care about the other party's choice. Anyway, no matter what choice he made, he would have to bear the consequences. After he made his choice, he didn't have to think about whether he could bear the consequences. Because in the end, it will also fall directly on your body. Don't worry about this. You won't be able to escape. If Xia Shui was here and heard Li Tianqing's words, she would probably understand why Li Zongjio had such a tone. It turned out that he learned it from Li Tianqing. In the past, Li Tianqing knew how to endure and take a step back. After all, the underworld was about the ways of the world, not about fighting and killing. But one day, Li Tianqing suddenly realized. He didn't need to. He didn't need to talk to you about the ways of the world. I'll just fight and kill them. After all, he had such a heaven-defying son. What was there to talk about? If he couldn't do anything, he could do everything. As long as you dared to cause trouble, he would destroy you in minutes. It was that simple. The reason why he talked to you about the ways of the world was because he couldn't beat you. Family Headley, do you really think that your people can stop me? When Song Hung heard Li Tianqing's words, he immediately felt that it was troublesome. However, he was a true absolute saint expert. And he also had special means. During this period of time, he had traveled around the world and made many friends. If they really met on the battlefield in the end, he wouldn't necessarily be at a disadvantage. It was still unknown who would win. Then you can try. Although Li Tianqing wasn't an absolute saint, he had the guts to face an absolute saint expert head-on. This kind of aura was indeed unparalleled. After all, he had to support this situation. Then I can only offend you. Song Hung was an absolute saint expert. Did he have to be humble in front of you? If it weren't for Qing Shilong in front of him, he would have beaten you to a pulp. Chapter 1482. Song Hung did not intend to waste time with these people. If he wanted to take Chen Judao away, the people in front of him were not qualified to stop him. Attack! Li Tianqing bellowed. The 4 great experts attacked at the same time, along with the 3 wind thunder godly eagles. Qing Shilong rushed to the front. His strength was the strongest, and his cultivation was the strongest. It was natural for him to rush to the front. Immediately, Mansion Master Song Hung slapped his palm forward. Immediately, monstrous origin energy turned into a giant wave. Instantly, it pounced on the people in front of him. Boom! Qing Shilong directly transformed into his original form in the giant wave. Boom! In this instant his aura exploded. With the help of the 3 great elders, the space in the surroundings became chaotic. The surrounding space was thrown into chaos, making it impossible for the latter to escape. He had to fight his way out of the encirclement head-on. Boom! Song Hung slapped Qing Shilong's body continuously for more than 10 times. However, Qing Shilong did not suffer any injuries. Instead, he moved closer and clawed a hole in Song Heng's clothes. Li Tianqing and the others could only retreat. They could only watch the great battle between the human and the dragon. Chen Judao was barely able to protect himself in the countless waves of origin energy. He had to stabilize his strength to prevent his body from being torn apart by the origin energy. Any random force outside was enough to tear his body to shreds. He thought that he was so impulsive to come to such a place to die. Chen Judao even had the thought of killing himself. How could he be so impulsive? The main reason was that Li Zongjiu's force was too strong. Who would have thought that such a top expert would be arranged to guard Wuxia city? His little trick was simply a fart. He would be cannon fodder if he came. Now he had to trouble his mansion master. There was no medicine for regret in the first place. This allowed him to quickly calm down and think of a way to escape. As long as there was a chance, he must escape. Find a chance to escape. After you escape, it will be easier for me to escape. Song Hung transmitted his voice to Chen Judao. Chen Judao's face lit up when he heard that. Then, Song Hung suddenly directed a shockwave towards the 3 elders of the Divine Sparrow Palace during the battle. This created a certain obstruction for the 3 elders. Now, Song Hung had created an opening. Chen Judao was not stupid. He immediately rushed toward this gap. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he had fled several hundred miles away. As for how Prefecture Master Song Hung would escape in the end, there was no need for him to worry about that. Right now, he only needed to worry about himself. Boom! Just as Chen Judao was moving rapidly, Zhang Wuji's eyes lit up. Suddenly, a huge shadow appeared in the sky and covered the latter. Skyblaze Lion. No matter what, Li Tianqing would not let Chen Judao leave just like that. Li Tianqing, does your Li family really want to kill me? When Chen Judao saw Li Tianqing chasing after him in the sky, he roared furiously. Li Tianqing had gone too far. He didn't give him any chance to live. Fire Lion Palm. Li Tianqing used his actions to answer the latter's question. Boom. Li Tianqing's attack missed, but it also hindered the other party to a certain extent. The Skyblaze Lion's speed was enough to surpass the latter. The main thing was that this guy only wanted to escape. He no longer wanted to fight, and his momentum was greatly reduced. The Skyblaze Lion also found an opportunity to attack Chen Judao instantly. Boom! The Skyblaze Lion's claw dug a bloody hole in Chen Judao's body. With a bang, his body fell to the ground. With a bang, he exploded on the ground. Dust flew up into the sky. The Skyblaze Lion landed on the ground. It opened its mouth, and a fierce flame covered the area in front of it. Boom! The flame roared. It was as if tens of thousands of flaming lions had passed through. In an instant, everything in front of it was destroyed. A piece of scorched earth appeared. However, the other party's figure had disappeared. It disappeared mysteriously. There was no trace of him. Li Tianqing stood on the sky-blazed lion and searched around. However, he couldn't find any trace of the other party. He immediately frowned. He ran really fast, leaving behind some spatial fluctuations. It was obvious that the latter had used a spatial item to instantly disappear from where he stood. However, the other party was severely injured by the sky-blazed lion. It was enough for him to bear. After all, Li Tianqing wasn't an expert like Li Zhongjiu. He couldn't achieve such a level in realm. It was normal for him to have some life-saving means in his hands, since he could live for so long. Returning without success. Go back. The sky-blazed lion soared again, bringing Li Tianqing's figure back. In the sky, when Song Heng saw Li Tianqing return so quickly, he knew that Chen Judao had left. Since that was the case, there was no need to continue fighting. Domain. Suddenly, a ray of light shone from the forehead of Song Heng Mansion Master. Suddenly, a light screen enveloped everyone. Whether it was Qing Shilong or the three elders of the Sparrow Divine Palace, they all felt their origin energy disappear instantly. Almost instantly, they disappeared without a trace. What? Song Heng's figure instantly soared into the sky. Although Qing Shilong had lost his origin energy, his physical strength was still strong. However, when he flapped his wings, he saw Song Heng's figure disappear in front of him. After all, the other party's strength was at its peak. Qing Shilong, who suddenly lost his origin energy, naturally couldn't catch up with the other party. Hence, he could only watch the other party disappear in front of his eyes. Seeing that he couldn't catch up, Qing Shilong returned to the camp. What happened just now? Our Yuan power was actually sucked dry in an instant. Facing the sudden situation, the three elders of the Sparrow Divine Palace also felt that it was inconceivable. Could it be? The great elder suddenly thought of something. A legendary clan. They had once appeared on this continent for a short period of time. However, these people had quickly disappeared without leaving any traces behind. Some people said that they were all dead. However, some people said that they were hiding. However, no one knew the real situation. They were the Devouring Yuan clan. It's the Devouring Yuan clan, Qing Shilong said in a deep voice. Since he had made a trip to the Dragon Island, he had asked several brothers to find out what the situation was. Therefore, Qing Shilong himself was also very clear about it. The Devouring Yuan clan hadn't disappeared, and they were still on this continent. Wasn't it miraculous? Although he didn't kill Chen Judao this time, he could bring back the news of the Devouring Yuan clan. It would definitely be a great contribution. What? It's really the Devouring Yuan clan? The three elders of the Sparrow Divine Palace turned pale with fright. The terrifying ability of the Devouring Yuan clan was almost the fatal nemesis of any human or origin beast that cultivated origin energy. One should know that their strength came from their origin energy. Physical quality was only a part of it. However, the Golden Dragon clan of the Colossal Dragon clan could be said to be more eccentric. All of their strength was used to refine their physical strength. Hence, they could create a considerable amount of destructive power just by relying on their own bodies. They were a great threat. What's there to be surprised about? Master has killed so many of them. Why are you surprised? Qing Shilong could not help but ridicule them. These three old women simply looked like they had not seen the world. He couldn't help complaining. Seeing that Qing Shilong dared to complain about them, the three elders were enraged. The giant dragon clan is indeed impolite. Although they had a grudge against each other, they were now on the same side. The main thing was that Qing Shilong had become Li Zhongjiu's mount. At least that was what Qing Shilong said. In fact, it was just a simple carriage, similar to a cow or a horse. However, they couldn't afford to offend Qing Shilong now. After all, none of them had broken through to the Absolute Saint realm. When they broke through to the Honorable realm, they would be able to confront Qing Shilong head-on. Thank you for your hard work. Please take a seat inside. Li Tianqing came back and said. It was the first time that the old man in green had seen this person. He had never seen this person before. If it wasn't for the presence of this old man, things would have been troublesome. The other party had sent such an expert, and they almost fell into their trap. "You're welcome. Please go ahead." Although Qing Shilong hadn't signed a contract with Li Zhongjie, Qing Shilong's heart was already dead set on Li Zhongjie. Although he had previously said that his own race had been massacred by Li Zhongjie, Qing Shilong was still unswervingly loyal to him. However, this was not a big deal in Qing Shilong's eyes. Li Zhongjie's ability to spare his life was the greatest gift to him. Qing Shilong was a person who knew how to be grateful. In the beginning, he was under the control of Li Zhongjie, because the Dragon Ball was in Li Zhongjie's hands. However, it was different now. After returning from the Dragon Island, and hearing about Li Zhongjie's glorious battle record, he had completely submitted to Li Zhongjie. When great senior sister breaks through to the absolute saint realm, she will definitely teach this old man a lesson, the second elder said indignantly. However, this also proved the strength of the Dragon Clan. Their Heavenly Sparrow clan was indeed quite desolate. They had never thought that they would be so strong. However, as long as they followed Qi Yinran, the legitimate successor of the Sparrow Divine Palace, it was only a matter of time before they rose up. At that time, these people wouldn't be able to be arrogant in front of them. They were too much and too arrogant. Qing Shilong didn't go back for the time being. He only asked Nangong Wuji and the others to go back and bring back the news that Mansion Master Song Hung might be from the Devouring Yuan clan. He stayed behind just in case. Chapter 1483. Nangong Wuji and the others did not stay for long. Instead, they brought back the news of Zhang Hung. They did not expect that after mobilizing so many people, things still ended up like this. Chen Zhudao still managed to escape in the end. After all, Chen Zhudao was rescued by an absolute saint expert, so it was normal for him to be rescued. Li Zhongjie would not blame them for this. At least Li Tianqing and the others were fine. It was good that they were fine. There were some things that needed to be solved by his subordinates. Li Zhongjie couldn't do everything himself. Otherwise, the efficiency would be very low. When Nangong Wuji and the others returned to the Sacred Flame Imperial City, they found that Li Zhongjie had also entered seclusion. Nangong Wuji naturally did not want to disturb him. He could only report this to Xiao Zhao. Did the Devouring Yuan clan appear? Long Ji came to Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao nodded. Long Ji was an expert from the Dragon Island. Xiao Zhao was also very clear about this. The latter's identity was very mysterious, moreover. She had also made some transactions with the young master. Perhaps her relationship with the young master was not simple. Of course, Long Ji must have been recognized by young master. Otherwise, he would have chased Long Ji out as soon as he saw her. I'll go and check. Not all members of the Devouring Yuan clan were killed. What Long Ji needed to do now was to rope in Li Zhongjie. It would be best if she could persuade Li Zhongjie to join Dragon Island, to become a foreign member. Then the Draconic Penitentiary would not have to fight to the death with Li Zhongjie. Otherwise, this matter would blow up sooner or later. She could not do anything to Li Zhongjie for now, so she had been holding back. Long Ji came here specifically to build a bridge of peace between Li Zhongjie and Dragon Island. This was the only way to ensure the safety of everything. Everything could become more perfect without any casualties. Although the Dragon Island was very powerful now, if another disaster were to happen, who knows how long it would take for the island to recover. Long Ji volunteered to go and check on Zhang Hung. Xiao Zhao didn't stop Long Ji from going. After all, this matter mainly depended on Long Ji herself. If Long Ji was able to settle this matter, she wouldn't be able to continue if she wasn't strong enough. In the end, all the consequences would be borne by herself. She couldn't blame anyone else. Although they had become guests of White Deer Mansion, they were relatively free. It was fine as long as they did not do anything that would harm the mansion's interests. Their request was very simple. It did not matter if they were late for a few battles. Or not. After all, it doesn't matter whether you're there or not. It doesn't matter either. Xiao Zhao was doing his best to collect information on the Abyss race. The emergence of the abyssal race was only limited to a few specific places. It wasn't a large-scale occurrence yet. However, it was necessary to prevent this from happening. Otherwise, there would be an even greater disaster. The 3,000 islands had already suffered a great disaster. There was an extremely tragic battle in the sea region, because the abyss race had suddenly appeared. They were mysterious and unpredictable, and their attacking methods were quite terrifying. They could even eat the entire island. Some of the smaller islands had also suffered heavy losses, because they had been eaten clean. The people on the islands had nowhere to run. Therefore, it caused heavy casualties in a very short period of time. Of course, the entire Xingyan dynasty soon reacted. They also began to think of ways to deal with the abyss race. There were always more solutions than difficulties. Therefore, when the problem appeared, these people did not feel afraid. Instead, they felt that this was a good opportunity to perform meritorious deeds. Li Zongjio did not directly enter the trial of the evil dragon eye. He first took a look at Qi Yanran, who was on the green bird platform. Qi Yanran's injuries were recovering well. Every time Li Zongjio saw her, he became angrier at the devouring Yuan race. He must kill all of these damn things. In any case, they were all disgusting things. Li Zongjio then took out the supreme green cauldron that he had obtained from Zhong Xinshan. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had also obtained the supreme green cauldron. At that time, he could only see that the supreme green cauldron was not ordinary. However, Li Zongjio himself could not tell what was different about it. In his previous life, he was not capable enough, so he could not find out the mysteries of the cauldron. It was different in this life. It was not easy to obtain this cauldron. Naturally, he had to study it carefully. Perhaps in this life, he could find something powerful in it. Supreme Green Cauldron. Li Zongjio remembered that he had not refined pills for a long time. He did not know how good his alchemy skills were now. He took out all the precious medicinal herbs that he had collected from the sacred martial realm. Then, he took out the dragon pearl of the White Dragon Clan's clan leader. I wonder if I can use you to refine a transcendent divine grade pill. Li Zongjio thought to himself. He wanted to challenge it. The quality of the materials in his hands had already surpassed the divine grade. The dragon pearl of the White Dragon Clan's clan leader was the finishing touch. Li Zongjio could only rely on his own consciousness to create the pill recipe. In his mind, there were countless combinations that were going through his mind at a rapid speed. At this moment, his talent in alchemy was quickly unleashed. He had been fighting and killing for so long that he almost forgot that he was an alchemist. I've got it. Thousands of combinations appeared in Li Zongjio's mind. In the end, Li Zongjio judged the possibility and feasibility of one of the combinations. The refining process was very risky. There was a risk that the cauldron would explode at any time. If the cauldron exploded, not only would the pill be destroyed, but all the herbs would be lost. There was also a possibility that he would be seriously injured by the explosion. However, Li Zongjio did not care. He did it as soon as he thought of it. First of all, he set up several layers of reinforcement in his secret room. If it was hit by a violent impact, it might be destroyed directly. The White Deer Mansion, which Nangong Wuji had painstakingly built, would be destroyed by the terrifying blast in an instant. The outcome was predictable. This pill was so terrifying that he had to control it well. His mental strength was fully activated. Li Zongjio threw the precious herbs into the Supreme Green Essence Cauldron. Immediately, the Supreme Green Essence Cauldron began to operate slowly. As Li Zongjio poured his primary energy into the cauldron, the herbs were being refined bit by bit. Some of the herbs had terrifying power. If one's strength was not enough, not only would they not be able to refine them, they might even be devoured by them. These spiritual herbs could directly suck one dry. Then they would be injected into the herbs. In this way, one would be able to maintain a state of spiritual energy forever. It was indeed a little scary, right? However, in front of Li Zongjio, there were no such unexpected situations. He directly refined the pill in front of him in a relaxed and stable manner, and did not rush it. Instead, he was doing it slowly. It took Li Zongjio 7 days just to refine the medicinal liquid of the herbs. Even with Li Zongjio's cultivation, He still needed a full 7 days of refining before he could make all the necessary preparations. If Li Zongjie were to refine freely, it would probably take less than 2 days for him to refine the entire sacred flame royal city. It was just that terrifying. White God Fu. Li Zongjie activated the White God Fu state. Mental hell also activated Li Zongjie's mental state to the maximum. It was to ensure that every single drop of the medicinal liquid could be carried out neatly. It was extremely precise. If there was even the slightest deviation in the refining process, it could be destroyed directly. The spiritual energy in the cauldron was too strong. It seemed to have reached the limit of the supreme green essence cauldron. However, Li Zongjie had yet to put the real main ingredient in. This main ingredient was the dragon pearl of the White Dragon clan leader. This item had great benefits. It was about to reach its limit now. If he really threw in the dragon pearl in his hand, the cauldron would definitely explode. Let me see what kind of power is hidden in the supreme green essence cauldron, Li Zongjie said in a deep voice. With the activation of Yuan power, the supreme green essence cauldron vibrated slightly, as if an ancient inscription had been activated. Under such strong pressure, it was activated. Li Zongjie's alchemy skills in his previous life were not able to force the supreme green essence cauldron to its limit. Even a god-level elixir could not. But now it could. After all, Li Zongjie was refining a super god-level elixir. A surge of supreme qi was released from the supreme green essence cauldron. This was the power that came with the supreme green essence cauldron. Immediately, the boiling medicinal liquid energy in the medicinal cauldron became quite gentle at this moment. Just a casual release of this power was enough to truly destroy the heavens and earth. Heaven fell and earth cracked. Even the sacred flame imperial city would be destroyed. However, this incomparably violent energy was actually suppressed by this sliver of zenith qi. It was as if the medicinal liquid energy was like a herd of obedient sheep in front of the supreme green essence cauldron, not daring to act rashly. What kind of power is this? Li Zongjie was very curious about the supreme qi that appeared, but it was obviously not the time to study it. After making the preparations, Li Zongjie also directly threw the dragon ball in. When the dragon pearl entered the supreme green essence cauldron, he immediately sensed that the supreme green origin cauldron seemed to be excited. It continued to release the supreme qi, suppressing the power in front of him. At the same time, the power of the White Dragon clan's dragon pearl was gradually refined. Chapter 1484. So strong. Li Zongjie had not expected that the qi of the Exalted would be able to refine the dragon ball so easily. The dragon ball itself was in existence with extremely terrifying energy. Even if Li Zongjie wanted to refine it, it would take him at least 3 days. But in the face of the qi of the Exalted, it would be a matter of minutes. As Li Zongjie's strength increased, he discovered more and more new worlds. There were many things that he did not have the qualifications to perceive in the past. But now things were different. Li Zongjie could see that these things were extraordinary. It wasn't that these things were not strong enough, but that he had not been able to fully utilize them. This was the deepest realization Li Zongjie had ever had. Different realms would see different things in different aspects. Li Zongjie was very careful. Although the qi of the Exalted was like an extremely rich sort of elixir, it could easily deal with these disobedient herbs. Li Zongjie was also very receptive to these new things. Therefore, Li Zongjie quickly began to condense the elixir in his hand. The qi of the Exalted could not help Li Zongjie condense the elixir, but it could easily refine the herbs. It could be considered an extremely powerful ability. With this kind of power in his hands, it would obviously be much easier to refine elixirs in the future. By summoning the qi of the Exalted, anything that was difficult to refine would be refined, and one would not be able to react at all. If he could refine even these medicinal herbs, it would be a piece of cake for him to refine a human being. This time, he took a full half a month to refine the elixir. Li Zongjie rarely spent so much time refining elixirs. Tianzong Academy. Zhong Xianshan was also forced to come here to teach under pressure. But at this moment, Zhong Xianshan had thought it through. He would be wasting his life in this deep forest, wasting his life to find a way to live forever. In the end, he would not succeed in anything. It would be better to nurture more young and promising disciples. If he imparted everything he had learned in his life to them, he might not be able to find the way to immortality. But perhaps the people in the future would be able to find the true way to immortality through his explanation. That could be considered a form of consolation. Zhongxian Mountain had its own open-air platform. Alchemy, of course, had to be taken out and practiced in broad daylight. Only in this way could you better improve your alchemy skills and find the key to the problem. However, Zhong Xuanshan's training method was a little unique. These people actually had to recite ancient poems while refining pills. If not for the fact that Zhong Xianshan had managed to concoct a grade 6 pill single-handedly, shocking everyone present, no one would have believed what he said. This kind of pill concoction training method was really effective, and not just for the sake of making a fool out of themselves. After all, the strength that Zhong Xianshan had unknowingly displayed was rather terrifying. He had managed to refine a grade 6 pill so easily. Even some of the experts in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion did not have the ability to do so. Those people from the Heavenly Pill Pavilion always claimed that they were invincible just because they could refine a grade 6 pill. They did not even put others in their eyes. The reason why the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was so powerful was because they had 2 grade 6 alchemists who often gave lectures there. Now the Heavenly Sect Academy also had top-notch alchemists. Teacher Zhong, may I ask if your alchemy skills are the best in the world? A little lowly could not help but ask. This little lowly was also one of the more talented ones. After being recruited, she had been heavily groomed. Zhong Xianshan was also interested in grooming the latter's alchemy skills. However, although the latter was young, her comprehension was extremely high. Hearing the little lowly taking the lead, everyone raised their heads and looked at Zhong Xianshan. Xia Shui was among them. The matters of the abyssal race did not require them to go out every day. This Master Zhong did not have a class every day. Therefore, as long as there was a class, all the seats would be full. If one could not make a reservation, they could only wait for the next class. As a top-notch disciple of the academy, Xia Shui naturally had the privilege of being arranged directly. This was the reason why one had to be smart. When one's strength was strong enough, one would realize that there were so many privileges in the world that one could use. Everyone looked at Zhong Xianshan. Even a few of the instructors who were listening at the side looked at Zhong Xianshan. This kind of question was usually more sensitive. However, this little lowly knew of her status and knew that she was favored. Therefore, she did not beat around the bush. Zhong Xianshan smiled mysteriously when he heard this. Since he was here to enjoy it. Zhong Xianshan enjoyed the admiring gazes of the masses. He needed such admiring gazes, and this was the kind of gazes he needed. You must know that there is always someone better than you. In this world, no one can be number one forever. But from the looks of it, I can only call myself number one for the time being. When Zhong Xianshan started bragging, it was to the point where he was shameless. Someone asked again. It was said that the great evil lord could refine grade 9 pills. Could Instructor Zhong do it? Zhong Xianshan knew that someone would ask this. Then he pondered for a moment. Grade 9 pills. That's really a distant dream. When the crowd heard this, they thought that even Instructor Zhong Xianshan could not refine grade 9 pills. Then the great evil lord was still the best. I remember that the last time I refined a grade 9 pill was 280 years ago. Zhong Xianshan lifted his head and said. His eyes were looking at the sky, as if he was reminiscing about something extremely distant. Wow! The moment he said that, the crowd went into an uproar. No one knew that Zhong Xianshan was an old man, who did not look very energetic. Furthermore, he had a bitter expression on his face every day. It was as if he was forced to stay here. To think that he was so powerful. He was already able to refine grade 9 pills 280 years ago. That was close to 300 years ago. Now that 300 years had passed, what kind of improvement would he have made? How terrifying would his cultivation be? Wouldn't he be able to refine God-grade pills directly? All the disciples looked at Zhong Xianshan with stars in their eyes. This old man was really a living treasure. He was a living treasure. Xia Shui's eyes were also shining brightly. There was no need for an expert of this level to lie. With such an expert in the Sky Sect Academy, it would be their own problem if they, as students, could not make a name for themselves. At this moment, Zhong Xianshan was enjoying the admiring gazes of the crowd. There was no need to mention how exhilarated he was. What's that? The little loli suddenly shouted and pointed at the sky in the distance. At this moment, there was actually a purple cloud that was rapidly condensing in the sky. Everyone was shocked by the appearance of this purple cloud. They had heard that pill lightning was black in color. However, they had never seen a purple cloud before. Could it be that some kind of demon had entered the city? It looks like pill lightning. How is that possible? Are you stupid? Pill lightning is always black. Since when was there a purple one? Someone immediately refuted. Purple pill lightning. When Zhong Xianshan saw this thundercloud, he was certain that it was a purple pill lightning tribulation cloud. Ordinary pill lightning was naturally black. However, there was a type of pill lightning that was purple in color. It was almost impossible for this type of pill lightning to trigger a pill lightning of this level. Even if he were to give it his all, it would still be impossible. This was because purple pill lightning could only be triggered by a transcendent pill. Furthermore, this purple pill lightning did not have the slightest bit of destructive power. At the same time, the appearance of the other party was actually a way to celebrate the birth of a transcendent pill. A transcendent pill did not need any pill lightning to refine it. Holy shit! How is this possible? Zhong Xianshan watched as the purple pill lightning grew bigger and bigger. There was no concealment at all. Who was it that managed to refine a transcendent pill under the circumstances that he was bragging about? Zhong Xianshan was not humble when he said that he was only the number one in the world temporarily. This temporary period seemed to be a little short. In just a few minutes, this position had already been given to someone else. This made Zhong Xianshan feel rather shocked. The strength of the other party was simply too horrifying. Just who in the world was this person? To think that he could concoct a transcendent-grade pill. Alchemists from all over the city also climbed up to the roofs of their own houses to pay their respects to this thundercloud. Purple pill lightning is hard to come by in 10,000 years. Who is it? Just who is it? Could it be that someone has concocted a transcendent pill? The entire city was boiling with excitement. Azure Sea Academy. Yu Manzhou looked at the purple pill lightning brewing in the sky. In an instant, it felt as though a bolt of lightning had exploded in front of him. What the hell? Where did this purple pill lightning come from? Was he dreaming? What kind of place is that? Who refined a transcendent Dan? Yu Manzhou's alchemy skills had already reached the peak of the 9th grade, and had yet to reach the divine level. As for Zhong Xianshan, he was barely at the level of a demigod. There was still a certain distance between him and a true god. However, the sudden appearance of a transcendent was too frightening. A transcendent. Chapter 1485. It's in the direction of the White Deer Mansion. White Deer Mansion. It's the White Deer Mansion again. When everyone received the same answer, they all widened their eyes in shock. The White Deer Mansion was a place where people liked to play tricks. It hadn't been long, but another group of people had been released, causing a commotion from time to time. Now, even the purple pill lightning and the transcendent divine level pills were produced. The purple pill lightning turned into auspicious qi and was directly collected by Li Zongjiu, who was in the White Deer Mansion. All of it was injected into the 3 pills in his hand. In the end, the 3 pills slowly took shape. Li Zongjiu looked at the 3 pills in his hand and let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, I succeeded. This half a month was very long, but fortunately, Li Zongjiu succeeded. For Li Zongjiu, the last half a month of condensing time was simply going to cost him his life. Fortunately, he succeeded. I'll call you the soaring pill, Li Zongjiu said. After putting away the 3 flying pills, the chances of concocting a second batch of flying pills were very slim. because it meant that he had to continue killing the leader of the White Dragon clan and take out his dragon orb. Only then could he succeed. Therefore, Li Zongjio didn't want to refine another batch in a short period of time. The refining process could be said to be something that Li Zongjio didn't want to experience a second time. The feeling of being completely emptied was too uncomfortable. I wonder what kind of effect this transcendent divine level pill will bring to me, Li Zongjio thought to himself. This was equivalent to an 11th grade pill. Without the physique of an absolute saint, it was impossible to withstand the impact of the energy. Even if Qi Yanran came, it was estimated that it would be difficult for her to refine this medicinal pill. If she was not careful, she would directly be stuffed to death by this medicinal pill. Li Zongjio wasn't in a hurry to consume the flying pill. Instead, he first adjusted his breathing and adjusted his state to a peak state. At least he wanted a slow and steady improvement. The more anxious the situation was, the more he needed to know how to calm down. Otherwise, the moment he ate the pill, it would spoil everything. The White Deer Mansion regained its tranquility. However, the appearance of the purple pill lightning had taught everyone in the Sacred Flame Royal City a lesson. Evil Lord Li Zongjio, who had disappeared for 2 years. Even if all of you added up, you still wouldn't be able to catch up to him. He was already able to concoct transcendent divine grade pills. How could ordinary people catch up to him? So scary. Zhong Xuanshan's heart was filled with emotions, and 1,000 waves were stirred up in his heart. He had heard of Li Zongjio's pill concoction skills before. To be able to touch the threshold of a grade 9 pill at such a young age was indeed very good. However, Zhong Xianshan was about the same back then. But from the looks of it now, this Li Zongjio was simply a monster among monsters. Instructor Zhong, can you also trigger such a pill lightning? The little lowly asked in front of Zhong Xianshan. Zhong Xuanshan's face changed immediately. How was that possible? He was still far from the purple pill lightning. It could be said that the difference was like heaven and earth. In fact, he had never even triggered the purple pill lightning before. If he was given another 100 years, he might have a chance to touch the threshold of this level. In fact, this was his first time seeing the legendary purple pill lightning. In the end, whether it was a transcendent divine grade pill or not was no longer important. Whether it was or not, it was still above Zhong Xuanshan's cultivation. What a scary guy. Zhong Xianshan shook his head. Indeed, there was always someone better than you. Li Zongjio could be said to be the highest mountain in the world right now. No one had ever been able to climb it. In fact, this mountain had already flown into the sky. Just the terrifying strength that Li Zongjio had displayed was not something that the people in front of him could catch up to. It was hard to imagine. What's the point of arguing all the time? The only thing that's useful is to refine the pills in your hands. Zhong Xianshan reprimanded. Everyone instantly understood. Even Instructor Zhong could not achieve such a level. He was just too embarrassed to admit it. Even though Zhong Xianshan was unable to concoct a transcendent divine grade pill, he was still the second strongest person in the group after Li Zongjio. He still had this bit of confidence. The reputation that he had gained hundreds of years ago was not for nothing. Otherwise, even the master of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor wouldn't have personally come here to arrange things after the news of him leaving the mountain had spread. Just this alone was enough to make it difficult for others to do so. The Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's master was also very capable. It was just that Li Zongjio's brilliance was too dazzling. He could not compete with him at all. Everyone clearly understood this. The evil dominator, Li Zongjio, did not disappear without a trace. It was not that his cultivation had decreased. It was that his cultivation level was too high. You people could no longer catch up. I won't play with you anymore. What else was there to say? Work hard to improve your strength and catch up. There were still many people who wanted to curry favor with the White Deer Mansion. However, they were all blocked by the people sent by Xiao Zhao. He didn't know where these people came from, but they overestimated themselves. Lord Xiao Zhao, Zhou Bachuan has sent a letter. Taifai looked at the messenger pigeon in his hand. This pigeon was a very special kind of pigeon. It was extremely fast. Zhou Bachuan. Previously, Li Zongjio had arranged for him to guard the border in Wuxia City. However, Wuxia City was too safe. In addition, there were also some movements from the Devouring Yuan clan and the Abyss clan recently. Xiao Zhao directly called for this tiger general. He asked Zhou Bachuan to go and look for news about the Devouring Yuan clan. Now that he had sent a message back, it was obvious that he had found something. Xiao Zhao opened the letter from Zhou Bachuan. There was only one sentence in it. The Devouring Yuan clan is in chaos. Tell Zhou Bachuan not to act rashly. After finding out the specific information of the other party, we will make a plan. After all, Zhou Bachuan was an ancient person. Therefore, he had some understanding of the Devouring Yuan clan. It was not a problem to find them. The Devouring Yuan clan was also a clan left behind from ancient times. It seemed that Zhou Bachuan's perception was quite sharp. As for the Abyss clan, Wang Ding and the others were investigating. It could even be said that they were fighting on many fronts now. There were disasters from the Abyss clan in many places. After hearing about the Sea God Palace in the Four Seas, the Sea Empress was rushing to Sacred Flame Royal City at full speed to ask for help. As long as the Sea Empress came, she would definitely bring some news about the Abyss clan. At present, the Sea Empress was guarding the Four Seas, so it was relatively safe. After all, the Sea Empress had a divine artifact, and her cultivation was already in the sovereign realm. Naturally, there was nothing to be afraid of. For the time being, she could hold up for a while. However, no one knew what would happen in the future. All kinds of things fell on Xiao Zhao's shoulders, but Xiao Zhao did not feel the slightest panic. Longji had actually returned. After chasing for a long time, he still could not find the guy from the Devouring Yuan clan. After all, the Devouring Yuan clan was an expert in hiding their aura. They looked just like ordinary people. If the other party was not willing to take action, it was impossible to distinguish their aura. That guy hasn't come out of seclusion yet? Longji obviously wanted to play with Li Zongjio. After all, other than Li Zongjio, the rest of the people were too weak to play with. How many people in the city could speak normally in front of Longji? If they focused their gaze on you, you would feel like you were about to collapse. This was really normal, because your strength was not as strong as Longji's. The gap between their realms was obvious. Miss Longji, don't forget that you are also the tactical combat instructor of the Sky Sect Academy. Xiao Zhao saw that Longji seemed a little bored, so he simply reminded her. Xiao Zhao did not have any plans to order Longji around. After all, Longji was too strong. Xiao Zhao could feel it. However, he could not let her do nothing all day. She had to at least do something. Right, I almost forgot. Longji suddenly realized that she did have such an identity. Back then, she had taken the initiative to volunteer. In the end, she did not even know where the entrance of the academy was, let alone going to class. I'm ashamed. I'll go take a look now. Longji was swift and decisive. In an instant, she left the White Deer Mansion. Xiao Zhao shook his head helplessly. Therefore, people had to have some goals. Otherwise, if you stayed here all day, you would not know what to do. Aimless. Wasn't this kind of life very scary? After that, Xiao Zhao continued to deal with the matters at hand. He sorted out his confidence and deployed the manpower reasonably. These things should be done by Emperor Xingyan. However, Xiao Zhao listened to Li Zongjio's orders. Since it was a task given by Li Zongjio, of course, he had to complete it. In the secret chamber, Li Zongjio rested for 3 days. In the middle, he even took the time to sneak out to eat pickled fish. Only then did he return. There was a pill in his hand. It was clear. The light was restrained. With just a glance, he felt deeply attracted to the latter. Super divine level pill, soaring pill. It was as if lying in the palm of his hand was a rare beauty. There was no time to admire it. Li Zongjio opened his mouth and swallowed the soaring pill in his hand. The soaring pill was like a pool of clear water in his mouth. There was no fluctuation at all. Suddenly, this pool of clear water turned into a long river in the blink of an eye. It was flowing in Li Zongjio's body. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.